The House will come to order. The Pledge of Allegiance this morning will be led by Nicole Wilson, Miss Loveland Valentine from Thompson Valley High School.
Please join me for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Mr. Cole, please take the roll. Representatives Becker. Representative Becker. Absent. Absent. Buck. Here. Buckner. Here. Conti. Representative Conti. Absent. Coram. Thank you. Court. Representative Court. Absent. Absent. Del Grosso. Here. Dorr. Here. Duran. Here. Everett. Here. Exum. Fields. Absent. Present. Fisher. Representative Fisher. Fisher. Absent. Absent. Foote. Representative Foote. Representative Becker is present. Foote. Absent. Absent. Garcia. Here. Gardner. Here. Giroux. Janal. Hamner. There. Holbert. Hollinghorst. Representative Hollinghorst. Hollinghorst. Absent. Absent. Humphrey. Joshi. Kagan. Kraftharp. Labuda. Landgraf is excused. Lawrence. Lebsock. Lee. May. McCann. McLaughlin. McLaughlin. Absent. Absent. McNulty. Melton. Mitch Bush. Moreno. Representative Moreno. Absent. Representative Fisher is present. Murray. Navarro. Nordberg. Pabon. Peniston. Pedersen. Primavera. Priola. Rankin. Rosenthal. Ryden. Same. Representative Hollinghorst is present. Representative Sane is present. Salazar. Schaefer. Scott is excused. Representative Court is present. Singer. Representative Foote is present. Singer absent. Sonnenberg. Stevens is excused. Swam. Zabo. Tyler. Vigil. Waller. Representative Conti is present. Representative Waller. Absent. Absent. Williams. Wilson. Wright. Young. Speaker Ferrandino.
Morning, Corey. What we got?
I'm here.
Hold on for a minute. We got to get all this worked out first.
What's the
is here and now.
Thank you.
Oh, he has to announce the vote.
I heard it.
And then we-
Thanks.
That was really good.
I've got McLaughlin's here. Not McLaughlin. So, Steve Waller and Kaufman still absent. Okay. 59, 3 and 3.
With 59 members present, 3 excused and 3 absent, a quorum is present. Representative Primavera.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I move that the reading of the Journal of Friday, February 7th, 2014 be dispensed with
Moreno's here.
and that it be approved and corrected,
Moreno's here.
approved as corrected by the Chief Clerk.
You've heard the motion. All those in favor say aye. All those opposed say no. Motion is adopted. Representative Singer is here as well. Okay. Announcements and introductions. Representative Labuda.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Members, Valentine's Day is coming up, and if you'll recall, you had these invitations on your desk last week. Valentine's Day, Friday, February 14th. Join us at 8 a.m. in room 109 to welcome the 2 new women to our legislature, one of whom is with us here, Representative Casey Becker. I look forward to seeing all of you there, and I'll remind you, I think, every day. Thank you.
Representative Diane Mitch-Bush.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'd like to welcome all the members of our rural electric co-ops who are with us today, and most specifically, my 2 co-ops, the Yampa Valley Electric Association and also the Holy Cross Energy. And I've seen 2 people from each of them, and I will not say their names or else I'll be fined. But thanks for being here, and thank you for all you do on our rural electric co-op boards.
Representative Salazar.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. We have wonderful kids from my district, from Stargate Academy, just sitting right up here. Let's give them a round of applause. Hi, guys.
Mr. Minority Leader, hopefully you're getting some sleep. And Representative Buck.
All right, members, listen up here. Actually, I got kind of a cool introduction here. This is something as a representative Loveland, the representatives that represent the Loveland area since 1962 have had the ability to come down and do this and the privilege to do this. So we're going to introduce Miss Valentine, me and Representative Buck, and so I'll let her take it away and then we'll finish it up. But if you can just bear with us for a minute, we'd appreciate it.
Representative Buck.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And as Representative Del Grosso said, since 1962, Loveland has been selecting a Miss Loveland Valentine. The title of Miss Loveland Valentine has been held with honor and pride as this young woman spends the next years representing the beautiful community of Loveland. In addition to her capital trip, she will also speak to the many Loveland community nonprofit organizations and service clubs and will be featured in the television, radio, and newspaper media across the nation.
All right. Now, we all think
Mr. Minority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Sorry. So we all think that we live pretty busy lives and crazy lives. But just listen to this here just real quick. Miss Valentine, she's a high school senior. So she's a high school senior. But she's also she's an honor student, the student body president. She's in extracurricular activities. So she does volleyball, FBLA, DECA, National Honor Society, Spanish National Honor Society, volunteers for Habitat for Humanity, and does an Adopt a Family program back there where she does canned food drives for the Larimer County Food Bank. So we all think that we live crazy stuff, and as a high school student, she is able to go out and do all of these extra stuff. So she is truly an asset to the city of Loveland, and it is our privilege to introduce to you Nicole Wilson, Miss Valentine for 2014.
Mr. Minority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And just one quick announcement. Also accompanying her today are her parents, Mary and Rob Wilson. And then, as always, we have Chester and Norma Jean Goodhart. They always accompany Miss Valentine down as well. So thank you for being here today.
Representative Kagan.
Members of the Judiciary Committee and those interested in House Bill 1127, 1153, and 1157, there is going to be a change of order in the Judiciary Committee's consideration of those bills on Tuesday afternoon. Quorum's disclosure information asset recovery for limited testimony and action will be quick and will happen at 1:30. Then at about 1:45 to 2 o'clock we'll take up Humphrey, policies allowing concealed carries in public schools. That will be going the first of the major bills, and then Priola will follow that, attorney fees for all motions to dismiss, following concealed carry in public schools. So that will be the order on Tuesday afternoon.
Any further announcements? Representative Fisher.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Members, just a reminder that tomorrow is CSU's Founders Day. Dignitaries and students and the CSU Concert Choir will be here to help celebrate Founders Day, the 144th anniversary of the founding of Colorado State University, our land-grant university. And as part of that, you are all invited to a breakfast and networking event down on the first floor in the West Foyer. And then later on in the morning, hopefully if the timing works out right, we will present CSU with the tribute and also hopefully have the ability to have the concert choir perform in the gallery here in the house. So just remember tomorrow morning, breakfast on the first floor by CSU.
Representative Wilson.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Colleagues, just a reminder, on Friday you had an enrollment form for the Sportsman's Caucus on your desk. Those are due today, so please turn those in to my desk or in 271 if you would, please, if you're interested in joining the Sportsman's Caucus. Thank you.
Representative Staudenberg.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And as Representative Mitch Bush had pointed out, today's Colorado Rural Electric Association Day at the Capitol. I wanted to send a shout out to my rural cooperatives, which include Highline, High West Energy, Morgan County, YW, Mountain View, KC, and United. So all of those are within my district. I also want us to welcome all of the other co-ops that are here. So if we could have all of the people from the Rural Electric Association stand up so we can welcome you all.
Representative Becker.
And I'm here to welcome the folks from Mountain Park Electric. They braved the roads and made it from Grand County to Denver. Thanks for being here.
Representative Quorum.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. It's an honor for me to be here today. I have 3 rural electrics in my district. San Miguel Power Association, Delta Montrose Electric Association, and Empire Electric. So thank you very much for being here. Appreciate you being here. Thank you.
Representative Schaefer.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Members, tomorrow we will have a brief tribute to a fallen law enforcement officer from Jefferson County who was killed a week ago in a tragic car loss, motorcycle crash. So we will ask for your attention at that time. Thank you.
Any further announcements or introductions? Representative Murray and Lawrence.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I have not seen them yet, but I'm sure that Intermountain Rural Electric is here. I've lived 35 years with their IREA. Oh, there they are waving. 35 years with IREA as my electricity provider, low-cost electricity that is very dependable. When I first moved here, it was a little sketchy, but I have to say that in the last 5-10 years, the electricity has never been down. So thank you so much for your hard work and congratulations on your growing district.
Representative Lawrence.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And for the IREA members that are here, I want to thank you for House District 39. You also serve my constituents in Teller County. And as Representative Murray said, they do provide reliable, low-cost electricity for the people in my district. And I just want to thank them and recognize their attendance here today.
Mr. Minority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. All right, members, I do have one more announcement. As you all know, I was gone the last couple days, so we don't need to, or the end of last week, so it's resounding applause. But I also have another introduction that I would like to make. And if Ron could put that up for me. That is little Zachary Mark. He was born Wednesday. We brought him home. This is his going home photo on Friday night. So that was, I'd like to welcome him to the world and to the state of Colorado. And so thank you. And then if I'm more grumpy than normal, it's because I don't have any sleep. And those of you that have kids know exactly what I'm talking about. So bear with me. So thank you.
Congratulations, Mr. Minority Leader. Representative Hamner.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And we have a birthday in the House today. So as the Capitol Choir is making their way down here and warming up your vocal cords, today we have Representative McCann celebrating her birthday. So happy birthday. And if we can all, we're going to have a little quartet. Here we go.
Okay, all right.
Here we are. Ready?
Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, Representative McCann. Happy birthday to you.
Any further announcements or introductions? Seeing none, members, please return to your desk. We'll proceed to our next order of business, third reading of bills, final passage. Mr. Kohler, please read the title to Senate Bill 7.
Senate Bill 7 by Senator Lundberg, also Representatives Foote and Del Grosso, concerning authority for Board of County Commissioners to transfer county general fund monies to its county road and bridge fund after declared disaster emergency in the county.
Madam Majority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move for the adoption of Senate Bill 7 on third reading and final passage.
You've heard the motion. Seeing no discussion, the question for the House is the passage of Senate Bill 7 on third reading and final passage. Mr. Kohler, please open the machine and members proceed to vote. Representatives Buck, Giroux, Humphrey, Melton. Representative Buck. Close the machine. With 63 aye votes, 0 no votes, 2 excused, and 0 absent, Senate Bill 7 is passed. Co-sponsors. Close the machine. Mr. Kohler, please read the title of the House Bill 1073.
House Bill 1073, Representative Pabon, also Senator Rivera, concerning the recording of legal documents.
Madam Majority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move for the adoption of House Bill 1073 on third reading and final passage.
Seeing no discussion, the question for the House is the passage of House Bill 1073 on third reading and final passage. Mr. Kohler, please open the machine and members proceed to vote.
Okay.
Representative Peniston. Close the machine. With 58 aye votes, 5 no votes, 2 excused, and 0 absent, House Bill 1073 is passed. Co-sponsors. Close the machine. Madam Majority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Have you done co-sponsor?
Yes, I did.
Oh, okay. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move to lay over House Bill 1022 to the end of the calendar.
Seeing no objection, House Bill 1022 will be laid over till the end of the calendar. We'll proceed to our next order of business, general order, second reading of bills. Members, we are doing supplemental appropriations today, so we will get through all the supplementals, even if that means we're working through lunch. Just a heads up. Representative Labuda. You've heard the motion. Seeing no objection, the House resolve itself in the committee of the whole for consideration of general orders. Representative Labuda will take the chair.
The committee will come to order. With your unanimous consent, the bills will be read by title unless there is a request for reading a bill at length. Committee amendments will not be read unless requested, as they are printed and in your bill folders. Floor amendments will be shown on the screen and on your iPads and not read unless requested. Bills will be laid over upon motion of the majority leader, and the Cote rule is relaxed. Madam Majority Leader.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move to lay over House Bill 1021 to the end of the calendar.
House Bill 1021 will be laid over till the end of the calendar as requested by the Majority Leader. Mr. Kohler, would you please read the title to House Bill 1232?
House Bill 1232, Representative Duran, also Senator Stebbins, concerning a supplemental appropriation to the Department of Agriculture.
Representative Duran.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Today I begin with moving House Bill 1232, the supplemental appropriation for the Department of Agriculture.
Thank you. Please proceed.
This is one of our most simple supplementals that we have coming forward today. It's dealing with a true-up process that is repeated in most other department supplements, and this mainly deals with lease purchase for vehicles. I ask for your support.
Is there any further discussion on House Bill 1232? Seeing none, excuse me. All those in favor of House Bill 1232, please signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed, no. The ayes have it. House Bill 1232 is adopted. Mr. Kohler, please read the title to House Bill 1233.
House Bill 1233, Representative Duran, Senator Stebbins, concerning supplemental appropriation to the Department of Corrections.
Representative Duran.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move House Bill 1233, which is a supplemental appropriation for the Department of Corrections.
Thank you. Please proceed.
Okay. Thank you, Madam Chair. So there were several changes that we had for the Department of Corrections this year. Starting with the offender population increase. We had an increase that had the supplemental there. Also increased costs for offender medical expenses, and this is primarily due to pharmaceuticals and a projected increase of 677 average daily populations. We also had a sex offender treatment and monitoring, and this was due to a team of outside experts which issued a report in January of 2013. Originally, the request had to do with the backlog of untreated offenders, and it does include monitor and dosage of medication, increased quality of the therapeutic relationship, recruit staff to move these individuals into the community so they don't reoffend. Also, a change for our fugitive unit, and this is in response to some of the tragic events in Colorado that have occurred. This is an effort to recover parolees that have absconded. And the way that this will work is to put additional dollars towards apprehending offenders that were absconded, walked away from community correction centers, or walked away with intensive supervision. We also had an increase for the payment to district attorneys, and this was due to prosecuting cases involving the murders of 2 corrections officers and 1 offender. We also had an increase for the Sterling Correctional Facility treatment, and this was due to a need to have drinking water that was conforms to uranium content guidelines for the Colorado Department of Public Health and Environment. Executive security, additional security for the Department of Executive Director and the Executive Director's spouse. Also some technical adjustments, and since last session we did have a bill in which Fort Lyon was now being used as a homeless center. We needed to mothball that, no longer have the appropriation to mothball Fort Lyon. And then also statewide vehicle lease trip. Once again, this is usual in that we just needed to do a trip for our lease payments. So I ask for your support.
Representative Waller.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and Representative Duran, thank you for that very detailed explanation. It sounds like what we're saying here with this supplemental appropriation is that caseload's gone up, or the number of offenders have gone up pretty significantly in the state of Colorado, and that's why we need more money within the Department of Corrections. However, as you know, over the last several years, the population in prisons has been declining rather precipitously, and it's been going down pretty significantly. And as we've been funding the Department of Corrections, we haven't had a corollary in the less money that's been going to the Department of Corrections as offender populations are going down. So it just seems odd to me that now when the population is going back up, all of a sudden we're saying now that offender populations are tied to the number of dollars. I was hoping maybe you could explain that just a little bit better, or at least it would be nice to know if the Department of Corrections in any way articulated to you why they're now having a change in the way they perceive their budgeting process, and that they're now once again tying it to offender population, where over the past several years they've said no, we shouldn't tie it to offender population because population was dropping and the budget was still increasing. Could you give us some more explanation on that, please?
Representative Duran.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and good morning, Representative Waller. Good to see you. Yes, absolutely. I think what the story here is this: is that for some time we were seeing a decline in the population in our prison system. Unfortunately, we have started to see that number rise again, and specifically the areas that we need additional beds are at the Buena Vista Center, which would be an additional 140 beds. Also, Sterling actually canceled a planned reduction that they had scheduled, and so that's going to be a total of 100 beds, and then the Trinidad Correctional Facilities at 100 beds as well. And so one of the issues is I think that we need to continue to look at our overall projections for the number of offenders in our prison system, and I think the department has done that. So they've done a prison utilization study, and they're continuing to look at this issue so that we really can monitor how the number of offenders and making sure that we're making the appropriate costs associated with those number of offenders. Let me just add something else. Thank you to my wonderful partner, Representative May. Since these 440 beds were neither funded for or not available for the entire fiscal year, the average daily population that could be housed in these beds is about 155.
Representative Waller.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you for that explanation, Representative Duran. I'm not sure I completely understood it, and here's what I don't understand. Here's where I'm having a hard time getting my brain around this. Number one, I don't understand why we would be adding beds, period, seeing how the populations have decreased very significantly over the last several years, and we have fewer people in beds, so we have a lot of empty beds out there within the Department of Corrections right now. Beds that we're, by the way, still funding. We haven't had a decrease in the number of guards to guard those beds. In fact, the FTE in the Department of Corrections has held steady as the population has dropped. So I guess I don't understand why we're currently adding beds, why we're budgeting for more beds when we don't need to do that, when we still have more empty beds than we have prisoners to fill those beds. If we have more empty prisoners than we have beds, why do we need to add even more beds to not have prisoners in them? That's kind of the thing I'm having a hard time getting my brain around. And I certainly understand the need to fund the Department of Corrections adequately, but the problem here is, once again, the issue is we are now, once again, tying funding to the number of people that are in the Department of Corrections, where for the last 5 years, as the numbers have dropped, we've refused to do that. We have said, nope, number of prisoners doesn't equate to the budget we need, because if that were the case, if that were accurate, we would have cut the Department of Corrections as the number of people in the Department of Corrections decreased, as the number of inmates decreased. But we haven't done that. Number of inmates went down, budget went up. Number of inmates goes up, budget goes up even more. So I was hoping that some of these tough questions would have been asked in the JBC hearings, and I was hoping there's some explanation for why we need to bring all these new beds online when we have empty beds in other facilities that are currently out there.
I'm going to take Chair's prerogative for just a moment and note that Castro Elementary School students are here learning about our process. Representative Duran, Madam JBC Chair.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and welcome, kids. So a couple of things, Representative Waller. You know, to start off with, I guess I don't follow your logic. And the reason I don't follow your logic is this, is that we have closed prisons. We closed Fort Lyon. That was prior to the time that I was on the Joint Budget Committee, but there was in fact, that action of closing Fort Lyon had devastating impacts on that particular economy. And so we have taken actions. I think that the department has taken actions. However, when we look at some of the forecasts that we have received, like I said before, although we saw a decline for a period of time, we're seeing an increase now. And so based on those projections that we have, the DCJ forecast has us at 20,482. The LCS forecast has us at 20,583. And so to say that there has been no changes and that we just continue to put more money into the budget is not actually accurate, nor is it reflective of previous actions. And so I think the other piece of this, though, that needs to be really looked at too is that we have a U.S. Supreme Court case that came out around offender medical expenses. And so we need to make sure that we also provide medical expenses to many of our inmates, and that's one of the areas that you have seen an increase as well. So there has been many decisions made with regard to this, a lot of tough decisions, even a decision to close Fort Lyon that had an economic impact in that particular area. But given where we are, given the numbers that we have in front of us, given the prison utilization study and the additional forecasts that we've been able to be able to see, it is, we are doing everything we possibly can to make sure that we provide the necessary resources to the department. And I would love to see the prison population continue to decrease at some point or another. But this is, we're using the dollars most effectively in the situation that we're at right now. Thank you.
Representative Waller.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And Representative Duran, I apologize if I in some way made it sound like there have not been changes within the Department of Corrections over the last several years. Quite to the contrary, I think the changes have been fairly significant. You know, we've done a pretty good job in the state of Colorado at reducing recidivism while keeping our streets safer. We've done a good job at bringing that population down. And in the course of bringing that population down, you would think that we would see savings within the Department of Corrections. But we haven't seen that. We haven't taken those beds offline, beds that were not being occupied by Colorado inmates. And so here we are, we have a circumstance, and I would like to know, if you have the answer to this, I would like to know why or what the number of beds is that is currently offline in the state. How many empty beds do we have in the state of Colorado? And I apologize, I know that's kind of putting you on the spot here, but maybe you have that information. If you don't, you know, I understand it's not something you'd necessarily have readily at your fingertips, but here's the reality of the circumstance. Here's what we're doing, Representative Duran. We're adding 15 FTE when we didn't cut 15 FTE before. We're just adding 15 new FTE. In fact, the last time we had an equivalent number of prisoners that is being projected now, we had fewer FTE to house those prisoners. And so we're adding FTE to house those prisoners. I understand, you know, perhaps this need for the medical expenses, this new $6,500,000, and that ties into some sort of Supreme Court decision, but that's not all that you're asking for, and that's not all that the Department of Corrections is asking for here. They're asking for $10 million. $10 million more, where the medical expenses is about $6.5 million of that expense. So there's still a significant amount more for other things to add these beds online that you had previously talked about. And I'm just trying to understand why, when we've cut when we've cut the number of prisoners in the Department of Corrections over the last several years, we're adding even more beds now. It just simply doesn't make sense to me. So maybe you can explain it, maybe you can't.
Seeing no further discussion, the question before us is the adoption of House Bill 12. Oh, Representative Murray.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I had a question about the fact that Department of Corrections had miscalculated the amount of overtime pay that they were going to be paying to employees, and they came to us and apologized and said, yes, we realized we did that, but we can make up that difference within existing resources. So what that tells me is there's some pot of money that the Department of Corrections has fallen back on, and as I remember, it was $8 or $9 million, and they just came up short maybe $1 million. So I'm very concerned that suddenly we're increasing 15 FTEs. We have a lot of questions about whether those are really necessary, and Department of Corrections has some pot of money that they're saying they can lean back on to pay the overtime that they had miscalculated. So, Representative Duran, I was wondering if you have that number of the overtime pay and how much we had to backfill for that and how that relates to the issue in this bill.
Madam JBC Chair.
Thank you, Madam Chair. It's actually not in this, so it doesn't relate to this supplemental appropriation.
Representative Waller.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Now, maybe I don't understand department agencies and budgetary constraints the way the esteemed members of the JBC do, but here's what I've seen in now my 6 years in state government. Many times they do this little shell game where they ask for money for one thing, they take it out of the backside, they put it into something else. I think Representative Murray brings up a valid point here that somehow, you know, they're short $9 million in last year's budget because they screwed up. They admitted they screwed up, short $9 million, and here we are asking for a supplemental of, ooh, guess what? How much? A little over $9 million. So I think that's a valid question. And I think that that's a question that we need to have answered as we're moving forward and voting on these things. I mean, we need to have this discussion. We are funding state agencies to a greater degree than we did last year. We're going to spend millions and millions and millions and millions of dollars in this process today. That's going to happen. And I don't think there's anything wrong with inquiries about where that money's going, how it's being spent, what the departments are doing with it. We have brought up valid, legitimate concerns within the Department of Corrections, and I think they're worthy to be answered.
Representative Kagan.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And just to mention that Representative Murray's concern is a good one, but the fact of the matter is that the Department of Corrections had vacancy savings because certain positions went empty and were not replaced. And that amounted to vacancy savings which were used. And I think it's to the department's credit that the vacancy savings were not taken as and were used out of those existing resources.
Representative Duran.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And it's amazing to me that we're talking about something right now in this regarding the Department of Corrections supplemental bill that's not even in the bill, but in a courtesy to really communicate, I think, what the department's position is on this is they did use existing resources within their personal services line. And so at the very beginning of session, they came into the Joint Budget Committee. They said that they made a mistake. They said that they were going to be able to use existing resources to fix that mistake due to a piece of legislation that passed this chamber and the Senate chamber with bipartisan support to make sure that correctional officers are paid the money that is due to them. So they figured out that they had a mistake, they fixed it, and they're using existing resources to be able to make that fix. With that, though, if we want to get back to the Department of Corrections supplemental bill, I think that that would be great and be more than happy to answer any questions that you may have about that. I do want to mention one thing, though, with regards to the offender caseloads and the inmate caseloads that we have and individuals that are in prison. We can't forget that we closed Fort Lyon We closed a facility because of the reduction of inmates. So to say that there has not been any change or there has not been any efforts to really make government as efficient as it possibly can, I don't think that that is simply the case. So with that, I'd ask for your support.
Representative Giroux. Thank you, Madam Chair. Members, I think it's very important as we go through the supplemental process, and I know this is a great opportunity for you all to clean up your emails and all those vacant chairs over there. They're probably out, I don't know where. No, and the Assistant Majority Leader Pabon is in his chair. But all those, you've got about probably. Thank you, Madam Chair. I am talking about the process, Madam Chair. So you've got about 3/4 of the room empty, and I'm not even talking on this side. Please come to the bill. I am talking about the process, Madam Chair. I'm but asking during you to talk this about the bill. supplemental process, during the supplemental process, it's your opportunity to ask about anything on the budget, whether it has to do with the budget currently in effect, whether it has to do with the bill that passed last year. So to be told that we can't talk about anything but the supplemental bills before us is not fair, nor is it right. It's our responsibility as members of this assembly to make sure that the oversight of the budget is done for the benefit of your constituents. So if you want to ask anything about any of the other issues that are connected to the budget, I believe it's your right.
Mr. Speaker. Thank you, Madam Chair. And actually, and I have a lot of respect for Representative Giroux, I have to fundamentally disagree with her on this. These are dealing with the supplementals for the departments. What is in front of the legislature is the changes to those departments that are in these bills. Other things outside of those are not in front of this chamber right now. Unless you want to run an amendment to change something, then you can put it in front of us. But this is a specific issues. We're changing specific line items and specific budgets to chew up technical or policy changes. Those are all worth the debate. When we get to the long bill later in the process, then everything, yes, is in front of us, and we can talk about that. But questions about how these numbers were built, what the impacts of these numbers, yes, but questions about the entire budget is not appropriate, not fitting under the title of what these bills are.
Mr. Minority Leader.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And I would agree to that to a point. But the reality is the department is coming to us, asking us as a legislature to say, in some cases, give us more money, which they're asking for here. And so it's appropriate for us to ask about other expenses to say, if you spent money over here, why are you asking for money over here? So while I agree that that might not directly be on the pages in front of us, but to figure out why they spent money somewhere else and now they're coming and asking us for more money, I believe these are appropriate questions. To figure out why you need $18 million more if you might have spent some money somewhere else is an appropriate question. So that's, to the Speaker's point, there is some of that, but the reality is we still need to be able to ask some of those other questions to figure out why exactly it is they want the money that they're asking for.
Representative Sonnenberg.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And with all due respect to the Speaker, I think you're wrong on this. This is a supplemental to the original budget. And if we have questions how this affects the original budget and what happened with the original budget and why they are asking for this money, even though it's not in one of these line items, I think that's an appropriate question. And I think what Representative Waller and Representative Del Grosso are talking about is we were told some things in the long bill last year about this budget which is now not adding up to this supplemental, and that's what causes concern. That's why the questions, I think, are important to be asked. And even though it's not in this supplemental, I think it's important that those questions be answered. So I would ask Representative Duran to indeed answer that question.
Representative Giroux. Thank you, Madam Chair. And House Bill 1233 is the Department of Corrections. It's a supplemental to the budget for the Department of Corrections. The questions Representative Waller is asking is on the Department of Corrections. It all relates. As Representative Sonnenberg says, as Representative Del Grosso said, they all relate back to the budget. So I just want you all to know that I'm not down here in the well for a large portion of the supplementals, but if you have a question on anything on the budget, my desk is over in the far corner. I'm happy to answer a question about the budget because, quite honestly, the three of us are your representatives to the Joint Budget Committee, and it is our responsibility to be of service to you.
Representative May.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Here is what's in the Department of Corrections supplemental in a nutshell. They have a caseload increase for this year. The average daily population for the bed usage is 155 beds, which is what is being asked for. That equates to 340 beds across the Mayo system. 76 of those beds are in women corrections. The other amount of that funding that they're asking for is for an increase in purchases of pharmaceuticals, purchase of medical services from other medical facilities, which is roughly $2 million, and also catastrophic medical expenses of $3.8. So that is basically what they're asking for in this. They've also asked for that the unit that monitors and provides security to the executive director of that department and his wife now be paid out of general fund rather than being taken from their budget. So that's basically what this supplemental is doing. It's also funding the fugitive unit. So if you have questions around that, I'd be happy to answer them. Thank you.
Representative Duran.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And it's unfortunate because I did answer the questions that were posed. So, you know, with regards to what the Department of Corrections, and I said, even though it's not in the supplemental package, I will answer those questions, and I gave those answers for those of you that were actually listening and wanted to hear that. The other thing, too, is that I want to talk a little bit about this prison utilization study and the prison utilization study that was done and how this is changing some of DOC's practices. That study devoted substantial attention to capacity questions and recommended that DOC change the way it measures and manages capacity. So there is change that is happening in the department, change not only in the closing of Fort Lyon, but also change when they come to, when they're evaluating these issues of capacity. And so that is something that I think is very important to recognize as well. The utilization study advocated for a different measure of capacity consistent with the practices of most state correctional systems. It recommended that the special purchase beds be reserved for inmates in need of health care in the case infirmaries and inmate discipline in the case of management control beds, and that they should not be available for housing general population and should not be included in the operational capacity. So while I enjoy having this debate, the question before us is whether or not we are going to be able to handle our existing increase with offender population and also medical expenses, and this supplemental will enable us to do just that. So I ask for your support.
Representative Waller.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And Representative Duran, I couldn't say it actually better than Representative Kagan did. And I think Representative Kagan highlighted our concern perfectly. And Representative Kagan drew that nexus between our concern and this supplemental perfectly. And here's how. He said to us earlier, as he was down here, if you remember, the issue with this whole $10 million or $9 million that they had was taken care of through a vacancy savings issue. Vacancy savings means that the Department of Corrections has FTE positions that are currently not being filled. And if those FTE positions are not being filled, the Department of Corrections is still being paid for those FTE positions that are not being filled. The Department of Corrections then takes those dollars, saves them, uses them for other purposes. Sometimes it's to give bonuses to people. In this case, it's to pay for a $9 million mistake that the Department of Corrections made. That's what they used, FTE vacancy savings. Well, now here we are, FTE in this appropriation, and this supplemental appropriation equals 15. So now we, at one point, have a vacancy savings. We obviously have FTE that are not being utilized. I don't understand how we can have FTE that are not being utilized, yet we're asking for even more FTE to apparently not utilize, to perhaps create vacancy savings that we can then in turn use for some other unintended purpose. But that's the nexus, that's the connection, and that's where our question comes from. We have seen it before, and Representative Kagan illustrated it perfectly, where we're using dollars that are intended for one purpose and using them for another purpose. This supplemental appropriation has, once again, dollars for FTE purposes, and our concern is that perhaps those dollars are going to be used for some other unintended purpose. That's the problem. That's the issue. And I think the other thing that Representative Kagan highlighted perfectly for us was, once again, there are vacancy FTE within the Department of Corrections now. Why, if we have positions in the Department of Corrections that aren't being filled right now, why are we asking for 15 more?
Representative Duran.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And as I stated, it was out of the personal services line item. But Representative Waller, I hate to break it to you, but your numbers are just wrong. You're wrong when you say that there was $9 million that went towards this, because it was not $9 million. The mistake that was found and discovered by the department happened long before those $9 million would have been allocated. So it's disingenuous to get up here and say, oh, it was a $9 million mistake, when that number is not even correct. It's not even correct. And while I don't mind answering any questions that individuals have brought forward today, including this issue that is not in the supplemental package, I want to make sure that the facts are clear around this issue. It was not $9 million. That was incorrect. That was incorrect. The mistake was found much earlier, and it was a fraction of that. So please get your facts straight before coming up here. Appreciate it.
Representative Salazar.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And you know, discussions about Department of Corrections budgets is extremely important, particularly important to my students from Stargate Elementary School right up here. Hi, guys. They're enthralled by this discussion.
New father and Mr. Minority Leader.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And Representative Duran, I guess actually to get facts straight, let's just throw this 9 million, 3 million, whatever that number is, out the window. Let's go back to the fact that if there are vacancy savings, which means they didn't fill all of their positions, which they were paid for, why are they asking for more? That is the question that we're trying to get answered. So let's just throw the 9 million, 3 million, whatever the dollar amount is out. Can you answer the question as to, if they have vacancies now and vacancy savings, which means they didn't fill all of their positions, why are they now coming back after the fact asking for more people? That just doesn't make sense.
Seeing no further discussion, Representative Waller.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And I just want to set the record straight here. Yeah, Representative Duran's absolutely correct. It wasn't $9 million. That's what the Department of Corrections originally said, that the issue was going to be $9 million, but it ended up being, what, about $3.5, $4 million, something like that, that they need to fix this mistake. But I think that it still underlies the original concern, whether it's $9 million out of, what, about $780 million in the budget, or $4 million out of a $780 million budget. The concern is still the same, and the concern is still valid, and the concern is this. Are they going to be using these dollars for some purpose other than what they're intended to be used for? Representative Kagan highlighted how that happens all the time. Representative Kagan highlighted how FTE are created, not filled, and then once those FTE are created and not filled, those dollars can go for some purpose other than its intended purpose, to pay for staff costs. And so the question remains the same. The question is this: why do we need to fund 15 more FTE within the Department of Corrections when they already have a bunch of empty FTE positions there now. Is it just going to be more of the same, where these FTE are then going to be used for some other unintended consequence? I don't know, but it's a valid question. I mean, it truly is a concern that we have, and it truly is a question that deserves an answer.
Seeing no further discussion, the question before us now is the adoption of House Bill 1233. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed, no. The ayes have it. 1233 passes. Mr. Kohler, please read the title of House Bill 1234.
House Bill 1234, Representative Duran, also Senator Stedman, concerning supplemental appropriation of the Department of Education.
Representative Duran.
I move House Bill 1234, supplemental appropriation for the Department of Education.
Thank you. Please continue.
Okay, thank you, Madam Chair. So I'm going to go through the list of items that you have in front of you in your lavender book for those of you that are following what we're doing. The first thing, Start Smart reimbursement. We've had increased participation for free meals for students who are eligible for these, so we want to be able to make sure that we have Colorado kids are able to receive their lunch. Colorado is complex leased space funding revisions. This is just a change to the lease space appropriation with the fund sources supporting staff in the department's capital complex facility. And this increase was actually due to additional race to the top funding that the state received, in which we were able to hire 8 full-time positions for early literacy. And so we just need the space to be able to fit some of those individuals. Colorado Student Assessment Program. What this is roll forward authority to have more, for the department to have more time to work on assessments. We already allocated some dollars to them, and they have 1.5 million cash funds from the state education fund. And what they're trying to do with this is really just work with the districts, have more time to come up with some of the assessments. And so we included roll forward authority for that purpose. The CSDB salary survey correction. There was a technical change because last year we tried to we gave raises across the board, but one school in particular that thought that they were going to be affected by that was a Colorado school for the deaf and the blind, and this proposal is just to resolve. And there's also a proposal that we're discussing amongst the JBC to resolve this issue, but it's just a technical correction. Also, the grants management system reduction. This is an issue that comes up in 3 different departments. So before we get to some of the other departments, this is just sort of a teaser of what this issue is. Originally, Department of Education and Department of Public Safety and Department of Health were going to build their own system for grants management. And OIT recommended that until STARS, which is the system to replace coffers, is built, that they should put this on hold until the other system is built. So you'll see this also in the different departments that it was going to ultimately affect. I ask for your support.
Seeing no further discussion, the question before us is the adoption of House Bill 1234. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed, no. The ayes have it. House Bill 1234 is adopted. Mr. Kohler, please read the title of House Bill 1235.
House Bill 1235, Representative Duran, also Senator Stedman, concerning supplemental appropriation of the offices of the Governor, Lieutenant Governor, and State Planning and Budgeting.
Representative Duran.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move House Bill 1235, a supplemental appropriation for the Governor, Lieutenant Governor, State Planning and Budgeting. I ask for your support.
Thank you. Is there further discussion? Representative Sonnenberg.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And as I look at this supplemental, I'm curious. In the briefing at the top of page 17, it talks about an increase of $634,139,000 of general fund money for the governor's lawsuit with the sheriffs. Does he not already have legal counsel that can deal with these lawsuits?
Representative Duran.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and Representative Sonnenberg, thank you for the question. So the way that this works is that there is dollars, the $634,000 general fund for legal expenses associated with some ongoing court cases are transferred to the Attorney General. So the Attorney General represents the governor to staff and prepare the case and hire outside experts. And so that's what those dollars are going to be used for. Also, part of this, it's noteworthy to mention that because the Lobato court case has ended, there's also a reduction associated with this particular topic.
Thanks.
Representative Sonnenberg.
Well, thank you. If that's the case, then why wouldn't the Attorney General ask for the money to fight these gun bills instead of the governor's office? And it appears to me, according to this and what you just said, that we are we hiring outside counsel? What does outside experts mean to fight these gun bills?
Representative Duran.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And this is once again a teaser because some of these decisions affect multiple departments. If you go to the Department of Law, that's right, it's a teaser. If you go to page 30 of the Department of Law, there's also, you will see there where the funds will be used by the Department of Law to use existing attorneys within that department to defend that case.
Seeing no further discussion, the question before us is the adoption of House Bill 12. Representative Tyler.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I would like to offer L002 to the supplemental report.
Would you please move it?
That it would be displayed. I move L002 to House Bill 1235 and ask that it be displayed.
L002 has been moved and is properly before us. This is a multi-page amendment, members, which I think was on your desks yesterday.
Actually, it's
not. Okay, pardon me.
It's a single-page amendment.
Single page. Oh.
Members, let me tell you a little bit about this amendment. This is for Office of Information Technology to receive another $110,000. Over the last few months, numbers of us on the Joint Technology Committee have been working with the Secretary of State's office to make sure that we have a solid and safe and secure election coming up in November. They are currently rebuilding the SCORE system for, to run the election. There's a good team that's behind this. There's a good chance it's going to run fine, but we want to make sure and lock down and make sure that this system works properly. The discussions over the last couple weeks have been working with ways to ensure this success. And one of the ways we can do this is to add a program manager to mitigate the risk. Now, that's what this amendment does. It provides money for Office of Information Technology for a program manager. The Deputy Secretary of State and the Chief Information Officer have been part of these discussions and have both agreed on the value of bringing in a program manager to ensure success for November. Office of Information Technology has their most senior and experienced program manager on board, aware, and ready for this project. OIT and Secretary of State work together from time to time in the normal course of business. OIT regularly provides resources to other departments, Department of Law, Secretary of State. They work together very well. And in order to ensure that we have a good system going forward, I offer Amendment L002 for a program manager resource for the Office of Information Technology. And as I mentioned, they have one of their key people queued up and ready to go. Secretary of State's office is aware of this and think it's a good idea. It will help succeed with this program. Thank you. Please vote yes.
Mr. Minority Leader.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Representative Tyler, a couple questions. Where's this amendment coming from? Did the governor's office ask for this? Did OIT ask for this? Did the Secretary of State's office ask for this? And then my second question, and maybe the joint budget folks can answer this as well. I'm not fully versed on the whole process of the budget and where everything goes, but if I think back to the Secretary of State's office, how much general fund money currently goes to the Secretary of State's office, which I believe is zero, so we don't give any money there now. And so is this setting a precedence where we're now going to start funding an all-cash funded agency now with general fund dollars.
Representative Tyler.
Thank you, Minority Leader Del Grosso. This has been worked out with the Governor's Office, with the Office of Information Technology, and with the Secretary of State's office. It's a result of discussions that some of us in the Joint Technology Committee have had, and also the Election Commission have had, who are looking at this to make sure that we have success in November. So this was something that we've been talking about for a while to move forward. And I don't think that necessarily one time sets a precedent for the rest of time immemorial. This is the good way to do it. We're funding OIT. The money's going to OIT, and we're going to make sure we have good election in the fall.
Seeing Representative Rankin.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. This issue comes out of both the Elections Commission and the Joint Technology Commission. I was actually appointed about a year ago to sit on the Elections Commission as a member of Joint Technology. My involvement has been all along to identify risk. I mean, I certainly didn't vote for 1303, but I was cast into a position of saying, how do we implement it? What are the risks and how do we get over those? There's a very, very high risk of having software ready to implement 1303 in the fall. We, as the Technology Committee, Representative Tyler and I and others have been working on what it might take, to reduce that risk, which I still believe is very high, and we may actually have more action to try to mitigate that risk going forward. But it is a very serious problem. We're likely to not have the software to support all mail ballots and same-day registrations in November. It's because, in my mind, we should have taken longer to implement this in the first place. Now we have a very tight schedule. Representative Tyler is very sincerely trying to solve a problem. However, where the money should come from is quite a different issue. And, what we really are doing is, and just to refresh your memory, we fund elections out of business fees, out of fees that the Secretary of State charges. We've added cost. We've added cost to the cost of doing elections with 1303. The question that really, the deeper question that's being addressed here is, how should the added cost of implementing elections be paid for? Should we require Secretary of State to continue to be self-funded and pay for all the cost of elections, including reimbursement to the counties, including cost of new software and equipment? Should those be borne by the Secretary of State's budget, or should we look at general fund appropriations? So that really is the question before us. There is no question that we have additional cost, and we should absolve some of the risk by adding a good program manager to this budget. Thank you.
Madam Majority Leader.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And I stand in support of this amendment. I understand Representative Rankin's discussion relative to the whether general funds should be used or whether Secretary of State's funds should be used. This actually, the way we propose to fund the project manager will save the state money in the long run, and that's why I can support the way this is being handled. The sad fact of the matter is that the Secretary of State actually reduced the fees for business, reduced his ability to fund elections and other things, knowing, I believe, that there were going to be expenditures over the next few years to modernize the system, as was planned prior to even the election reform that we passed last year. But it needs to be done right. And I don't believe, having substituted on the Election Commission and been involved in those discussions, that there was adequate planning relative to putting a project manager on board. We are now trying to correct that. I think it's very important to do that so that we have a well-funded, web-based program for the election in 2014. That doesn't mean that that we can't do this without having this project manager. The fact of the matter is that there's a lot of progress being done on this. I think it probably would be done by the general election. It would be nice to have this done by the primary, and in order to do that and to test it out appropriately, that's a good idea. But the election in 2013 ran just fine with SCORE, which can handle this. But we have to handle it with SCORE with all of the clerks involved, and they've agreed that that can be done. It would cost us more than this supplemental would cost us. And quite frankly, I don't know whether the Secretary of State is prepared to do that. So I think this is the best way to handle the situation. And I agree with my colleagues. I ask for a yes vote.
Representative Tyler? Representative Giroux?
Thank you, Madam Chair. And colleagues, Representative Tyler very kindly came to, I think he came to all members of the Joint Budget Committee to tell us that he was thinking of running this amendment. There's been some conversation as to whether or not OIT has the staff to actually make the changes, but whether they do or they don't, to me, that's not the real issue. The real issue to me is, do we want to take dollars out of our general fund for the purposes of the Secretary of State's office? Now, we can, legally we can, but I have a real problem with that because the Secretary of State's office is traditionally funded by the fees it charges to businesses. And I think I've been pretty clear about the fact that I did not approve of a lot of the programs that have come out of the Secretary of State's office in the last couple of years having to do with economic development. In fact, it was, I think, March 21st of last year that I reconsidered a vote and voted for something.
Representative Giroux, could you stay to this bill, please?
Thank you, Madam Chair.
To
the point of the Secretary of State and this amendment, I'm not wild about this. You're actually saying that no longer are we going to make a practice, keep a long-held practice of keeping dollars from fees supporting the Secretary of State's office. You're now saying that you're going to take general fund dollars and put it into the Secretary of State's budget. So if you do that, those dollars are going to go away from K through 12. Those dollars are going to go away from higher ed. Those dollars are not, there's not a limited number or a limitless number of dollars in the general fund. So basically what we're going to do is we're going to take dollars away from our children when in fact what we could do is this amendment could be handled not as a general fund issue under another bill during this session. And we can take care of the problem that way and have the funds actually come from the appropriate place. I don't think we need to push this thing through right now. I think we should actually consider what the Secretary of State's office should be doing. I don't think we should always just grab general fund money to solve any problem. This is not the way to do it. And I'm not saying that because I'm a member of the Joint Budget Committee, and every member of the Joint Budget Committee should be coming up and should be opposed to this amendment. I'm saying it because I personally, I can't go back to my constituents and say, we're giving the Secretary of State money out of our general fund, or we're giving him money out of our general fund because we couldn't figure out a better way to do it. We can figure out a better way to do it, and this isn't it. I ask for a no vote.
Representative Tyler?
Thank you, Madam Chair. And I guess I'll start, Representative Giroux was saying I'm not wild about this either, but it is certainly the thing we need to do for the people of Colorado to make sure we can go forward and know we have a good election in the fall. Am I wild about that, having to provide this resource to OIT for this purpose? Not so much, but I do believe it needs to be done. We can do it legally, that's what I just heard, and I think we need to do it to make sure we can move forward and have the best resource possible. Remember, there's a senior Office of Information Technology program manager, the best person available to do this, and that was double confirmed this morning from senior management of Office of Information Technology. We have the resource, it's there. Secretary of State's office, through their deputy and through their chief information officer, says this would be of value, and this will help us move forward for the whole state of Colorado, for the people of Colorado, to make sure we have a good election this fall. Please vote yes. Thank you.
Madam JBC Chair.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So as a JBC member, I encourage you to vote against this. Unfortunately, we're in a very, very difficult situation because if fees had been maintained at a level by the Secretary of State's office to where everything could be paid for that needed to be paid for, we wouldn't be in this situation. However, as a JBC member, I really believe in the value of the 6 of us coming together on issues, and so I urge you to vote no.
Representative Szabo.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And I guess I have a couple things I'd like to address. One with Representative Tyler. You know, budgets are a give and take. And if we're going to take, we need to, do you know what's going to give? Have you solved that piece of the puzzle, where this extra money is going to come from in the budget? And when you said you weren't wild about this either, and Representative Duran said, you know, we've got to do something about it. What I think we need to do about it is put a hold on what caused this problem and where this problem came from, and that was rushing through a bill that is going to have many, many unintended consequences, not just budgetarily, but in other aspects. And to put a hold on that, let's figure out all these problems and then move forward. That seems to be the best way to plan a state budget. I think the people on the outside of this building hold us accountable and responsible to plan ahead and not come into this quandary with this. So again, Representative Tyler, do you know where this money is going to come from? Have you figured that out or consulted the JBC?
Representative Tyler.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I believe the JBC at this point has $0.7 million available in funding that has not been allocated at this point in time. Also, many of us have probably sat down and talked to the JBC about things they would want to do. I sat and talked to the JBC about a bill I wanted to run and get money for. There was to be about $500,000. That money I'm not going to be asking for, so they can take it out of my pet project, no problem. Thank you.
Representative Waller. I have Representative Waller, then Mr. Minority Leader, then Representative Sonnenberg. Do you want to change the order? Representative Waller.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I appreciate you recognizing me. You know, Representative Tyler, here's where I'm struggling a little bit with this amendment. My understanding is, and I think this question was asked earlier, but you know, perhaps we didn't get an answer that we were able to understand here. Maybe that's our fault, I don't know. But Representative Tyler, my understanding is the Secretary of State's office is not asking for this at all. They're not requesting this money in any way. The Secretary of State's office has said they are just fine on their own, that they didn't ask for a project manager, and that OIT doesn't have a project manager available either. So they're not requesting this money. It seems, you know, it seems somewhat inconsistent to me, Representative Tyler, that we are funding state agencies to a degree greater than the funding that they're asking for. I mean, when we have these discussions all of the time, it's usually in the negative. We talk about cutting funds from state agencies when they're not asking for their funds to be cut. But in this circumstance, we have a situation where the state agency, in this case, the Secretary of State's office, is not asking for these dollars. The Secretary of State's office, who knows how to run their department and run their division, has asked for the funding they need. They have in their mind an adequate level of funding. They have not asked for dollars in this circumstance. It is beyond logic to me then that we would fund them for some purpose they're not asking for. Representative Tyler, I would love to have a greater understanding of why this is necessary, but as I see you standing back at your chair, I'm understanding that I'm probably not going to get an answer to this issue either today.
Mr. Minority Leader.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And Representative Tyler, I did have a couple questions as well, too. The first one says it's going to provide a program manager, but is this a new position, or is somebody that's already employed going to go do this job, or are they going to have to hire somebody new? So if there's any new FTE, that's the first question. And then the second question is, if we were to delay implementation of the underlying bill behind this, even 6 months or a couple months beyond that, would that also eliminate the need of spending this money? So if we're looking at what's best for the people of Colorado, maybe we could save the people of Colorado a couple $100,000 if we just delayed implementation of the underlying bill that's causing the need for this, and that would actually save the money, and then we wouldn't need to spend that.
Representative Sonnenberg? Representative Sonnenberg, you're up next.
Well, thank you, Madam Chair, but some questions have been answered, and I'd like those questions answered, and then I'll come back up and ask my question.
And seeing no further discussion, Mr. Minority Leader?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I guess if we're actually going to hire a new person is a question that doesn't deserve to be answered. So I guess if that's the way we're going to play it today, go ahead and get your sleeping bags out, because we will be here all night long. Because if the majority party refuses to answer basic questions like, are we going to hire somebody, we are going to be here all night long. So, Representative Tyler, are we going to actually hire somebody because of this or not?
Representative Tyler?
Mr. Minority Leader, thank you. As I've mentioned at least 2 or 3 times in my presentation, we are not hiring anybody new. There's a senior person at the Office of Information Technology who's available to take this on, and they have the resources available on board, ready to go. As of about an hour ago, that was double confirmed.
Representative Sonnenberg?
Well, thank you, Madam Chair, and I'd like to go back to the original question. Representative Tyler talked about where the excess money that we have indeed in our state budget that he was talking about, and it was my understanding that we don't have an excess amount of money because of bills passed last year. That money went to education and water projects. So are we indeed taking money then away from water projects and education, according to Senate Bill 236 and Senate Bill 260 last year? Are we taking that money away from those projects for this?
Representative Tyler?
Thank you, Madam Chair. It's my understanding that the water projects have been funded already, and you can confirm that as appropriate or not. If you look on the JBC staff fiscal analysis House Appropriations Committee, there's a House Bill 1250 in particular under points to consider. The Joint Budget Committee has proposed a supplemental budget package. The supplemental package allocates all but approximately $0.7 million of general fund revenues available under current law, and this will be transferred to the fund. Also included, part of this 2314 supplemental package is a $1,733 million general fund appropriation. So above and beyond, there is, according to the fiscal note, an additional $0.7 million available. And as I mentioned, I gave up one of my pet projects.
Representative Giroux?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Members, the Joint Budget Committee doesn't have any excess dollars because we allocate those dollars to water projects and to K through 12, just as Representative Sonnenberg said. Yes, we may have funded the water projects last year, and we were very grateful because we had a lot of one-time dollars. But these excess dollars, that Representative Tyler says we have in excess, we really don't have an excess. And if you look at the budget that's being brought forward today with all the dollars that are being proposed to spend on legislators' bills, we don't have any extra dollars. Although I do want to thank Representative Tyler for giving up his fiscal dollars on his legislation. We'll take that, but we don't have any extra dollars, and you are taking away from K through 12. This will take money away from K through 12.
Seeing no further discussion, the question before us is the adoption of L002. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed, no. No. The ayes have it. L002 is adopted. To the bill, Representative Duran. Seeing no further discussion, the question before us is the adoption of House Bill 1235 as amended. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed, no. No. The ayes have it. House Bill 1235 is adopted. Mr. Kohler, please read the title to House Bill 1236.
House Bill 1236, Representative Duran, also Senator Stedman, concerning supplemental appropriations, Department of Healthcare Policy and Financing.
Representative Duran.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move House Bill 1236 and ask for your support.
Is there any discussion on 1236? Seeing none, the question before us is the adoption of House Bill. Representative Swalm.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Members, Representative Duran, I have a question on this bill. Can you explain to me where the increased funding, why do we have to spend the 39 million, or the 39 and even more than that, and why do we have to spend it, and where is it going to come from?
Representative Duran.
Madam Chair, good afternoon, Representative Swalm. Can you clarify your question a little bit?
Representative Swalm.
I'm looking at the increase under total funds of 39 million and then under cash funds of 68 million in the
Representative Duran.
Thank you. We're still a little confused. Which page are you on?
I'm on page 19. Why do we?
Representative Swalm.
Is that increase in expenditures, is that driven by the Obamacare? Do we have to spend that money, a federal mandate, or?
Representative Duran.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Sorry, we were trying to figure out what page you were on.
Sorry.
It is just with regards to the increase of caseload that we've had. So the increase of caseload is what is in that number.
Representative Swalm.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Well, fine. But then it looks like we're also going to be spending about $68 million more in terms of cash funds. Where's that coming from?
Representative Duran.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Most of that is a result of CHIP and the provider fee.
Representative Swalm.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Does the state have to pay for that? Does that come out of the hospital tax? Does that come from the feds? Where's that coming from?
Representative Duran.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So most of that is from the federal dollars that we receive.
Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So the CHIP funding, which is the large, I believe, change in some of the areas in the cash funds, are due to, that comes from tobacco funds and then reappropriated general funds that go into Amendment 30, mostly Amendment 35 dollars, which are earmarked towards it. And then there are, as you can see, changes in Senate Bill 200. Most of those changes in Senate Bill 200. What is heck is that? That was surprising.
1, 2.
Who's what?
I'm not sure where that noise is coming from.
Okay. I think our staff's trying to figure that out.
Okay. Mr. Speaker, please continue.
Thank you. Yeah. Right. Yes. I'll let my JVC.
Representative May.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The bulk of that is coming from a technical fix from Senate Bill 200. And so it was how staff calculated from 6 months to 12 months. It should have only been a 6 months calculation. It was just a technical error.
Seeing Representative Swan.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So help me understand. I think I overheard you talking to one another up here at the mic that this was a decrease in expenditure. But as I look at this, it looks like we're spending about $68 million more in cash funds. But help me understand that. Which, is it more or less?
Representative Duran.
Thank you. Okay, so now we know exactly where you're looking. I was a little bit confused. That's okay. So you're talking about the technical correction to SB 200, and that includes, so a couple things. Yes, there was a federal match that was not available until January of 2014. And so the appropriation in that bill should have only had half of the year impact. And so as a result, that is the change that we have here. So it's a reduction of federal funds in the cash fund provider fee line, but the total amount in the bill was correct, but this was a minor error. So we are changing that. That said, of course, we still are refinancing the entire fiscal year when the eligibility of the enhanced federal match is actually only effective January 1st, 2014, or half the fiscal year later. So that is what the difference is there. It was correct.
Seeing no further discussion, the question before us is the adoption of House Bill 1236. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed, no. The ayes have it. House Bill 1236 passes. Mr. Kohler, please read the title of House Bill 1237.
House Bill 1237, Representative Duran, all Senator Steadman, concerning a supplemental appropriation to the Department of Higher Education.
Representative Duran.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move House Bill 1237, supplemental appropriation for the Department of Higher Education. Ask for your support.
Seeing no further discussion, the question before us is the adoption of House Bill 1237. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. All opposed, no. The ayes have it. House Bill 1237 is adopted. Mr. Kohler, please read the title of House Bill 1238.
House Bill 1238, Representative Duran, all Senator Steadman, concerning a supplemental appropriation to the Department of Human Services.
Representative Duran.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move House Bill 1238, supplemental appropriation for the Department of Human Services. Ask for your support.
And the appropriations report?
I move the appropriations report as well. We did have an amendment on this one.
Okay. Thank you. To the appropriations report.
To the appropriations report, regarding mental health first aid services, we wanted to use existing structures that we have in the state of Colorado. This was a recommendation from some of the providers that we work with that provide mental health, and so this was an amendment that was put on in appropriations. Ask for your support.
Seeing no further discussion, all in favor of the appropriations report, please signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed, no. The ayes have it. The appropriations report is adopted. To the bill, Representative Duran.
I ask for your support for House Bill 1238.
Mr. Minority Leader.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And since we haven't had discussion on anything yet today, I figured I'd come up to the mic. Now, just one quick question. Page 25, CBMS hardware, where it seems like we're putting $2.2 million more into CBMS. Was there a miscalculation? Because if I remember the budget last year, we put a bunch of money in there. Why are we adding more? What was the reason that they came and said, well, we need $2.2 million more for that?
Madam JBC Chair.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This is a base operating increase for hardware and software. And I understand that prior to the time that I was on the Joint Budget Committee, there was an investment for CBMS. We're going through a modernization of CBMS as well. And so these dollars will be able to make sure that we have the necessary dollars that as part of House Bill 12-1339, which was a Becker and Lambert bill. So we're going through that modernization process. I think we just need to continue to invest a little bit more dollars in there to get it to the point to where it needs to be.
Mr. Minority Leader.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So once we put this $2.2 million in, will they still need to come back and ask for more money, or is this good? So now we gave them all of the stuff for the modernization, $2 million more to modernize it a little bit more, but did they say that that's basically all they need, or are they going to come back next year and ask for more money to even further modernize?
Representative Duran.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So this was for the hardware and software specifically. Now, it is my understanding that prior to the time that some of the dollars that were invested in CBMMS and the legislation that passed as a result after that to modernize the project, that these dollars, because they're used for hardware and software, that is the way that they're supposed to be, the way that those dollars will be invested. However, I can never sort of answer, right, in terms of what departments are going to do in the long run and if they're going to come back for another request. So I can't say with finality that this is absolutely the last time that they come forward on this issue.
Representative Giroux.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Members, they're going to be asking for $40 million more for the CBMS system next year because they need it to take care of software issues and also for the implementation of health care reform. This is your national health care reform that's free to you. It's only going to cost you $40 million.
Representative Szabo.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Representative Duran, if this is going to then, as you just said, be an ongoing appropriation, shouldn't they budget for this? At least budget something for this?
Representative Duran.
Thank you, Madam Chair. It's not an ongoing appropriation. It's not, in terms of what is in the supplemental package, it's not an ongoing appropriation. However, regarding some of the other dollars that they've requested to do a full modernization, those are dollars that they're requesting in the long bill.
Representative May.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And what this is doing is every large system has licenses for the software that they are purchasing, and this is an update of that license. So it's a one-time only cost until 4 years out when the licenses need to be renewed. Think of it like Microsoft Word that you have. So it's very similar. So it's not an ongoing, it's a one-time only. And the reason why they delayed in that, I did up, because I thought you were talking to me. Anyway, so the reason why it's in this year's budget is because, thank you.
Representative May.
Anyway, so it's one time only, and we're just renewing them as scheduled. Thank you.
Representative Szabo.
Okay, so then in 4 years, when we know the renewal's coming up again, we're going to have this budgeted into the budget, right? So that we're not supplementing it. Was that correct?
Representative May.
Thank you, Madam Chair. In a perfect world, yes, we'll have it in front of us in their budget. It'll either come in as our budget or a budget amendment, but yes, that's how the process works.
Seeing no further discussion, the question before us is the adoption of House Bill 1238 as amended. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. All opposed, no. The ayes have it. House Bill 1238 is adopted. Mr. Kohler, please read the title to House Bill 1239.
House Bill 1239, Representative Duran, all Senator Stedman, concerning supplemental appropriation to the Judicial Department.
Representative Duran.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move House Bill 1239, supplemental appropriation for the Judicial Department. Ask for your support.
Seeing no further discussion, all those in favor of House Bill 1239, please signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed, no. The ayes have it. House Bill 1239 is adopted. Mr. Kohler, please read the title to House Bill 1240.
House Bill 1240, Representative Duran, all Senator Stedman, concerning a supplemental appropriation to the Department of Law.
Representative Duran.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move House Bill 1240, supplemental appropriation for the Department of Law. Ask for your support.
Seeing no further discussion, all those in favor of House Bill 1240, please signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed, no. The ayes have it. House Bill 1240 is adopted. Mr. Kohler, please read the title to House Bill 1241.
House Bill 1241, Representative Duran, all Senator Stedman, concerning a supplemental appropriation to the Department of Local Affairs.
Representative Duran.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move House Bill 1241, supplemental appropriation for the Department of Local Affairs.
Seeing no further discussion, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed, say no. House Bill 1241 is adopted. Mr. Kohler, please read the title of House Bill 1242.
House Bill 1242, Representative Duran, all Senator Stedman, concerning a supplemental appropriation to the Department of Natural Resources.
Representative Duran.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move House Bill 1242, supplemental appropriation for the Department of Natural Resources.
Seeing no further discussion, the question before us is the adoption of House Bill 1242. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed, no. The ayes have it. House Bill 1242 is adopted. Mr. Kohler, please read the title of House Bill 1243.
House Bill 1243, Representative Duran, all Senator Stebbins, concerning a supplemental appropriation to the Department of Personnel and Administration.
Representative Duran.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move House Bill 1243, Department of Personnel Supplemental Appropriation.
Seeing no discussion, the question before Mr. Minority Leader.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So, Representative Duran, I just had a quick question. If you could explain, it seems like most of this cost is in workers' comp. Was there more claims than what we had anticipated, or why was there an increase in the workers' comp this year?
Representative Duran.
Thank you, Madam Chair. We have had an increase in claims, and that's the reason for the additional amount that is there. I did look at over the weekend sort of a list, and I don't have all of the numbers here in front of me, but a list of how those claims have been broken out. And so in order of starting with the most claims going on down is Human Services, Correction, Transportation, Higher Ed, and Public Safety.
Seeing no further discussion, the question before us is the adoption of House Bill 1243. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed, no. The ayes have it. House Bill 1243 is adopted. Mr. Kohler, please read the title to House Bill 1244.
House Bill 1244, Representative Duran, all Senator Stebbins, concerning supplemental appropriation to the Department of Public Health and Environment.
Representative Duran.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move House Bill 1244, Supplemental Appropriation for Department of Public Health and Environment.
Seeing no further discussion, the question before us is the adoption of House Bill 12. Mr. Minority Leader.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Members, I would urge a no vote on 1244. If you look at page 41, they're asking for a few dollars for the Front Range Air Pollution Photochemistry. Basically, they're going to use an airplane to go out and start trying to track emissions along the Front Range in the northeastern part of our state. If you remember, there was a lively discussion on that last year. This is funding that program. So I would urge a no vote on 1244.
Representative Duran.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and I, of course, urge a yes vote, and this is about air quality, and one of the things that is so important to recognize about this is that we are actually going to be able to receive money from the, and I don't know what that noise is, but we're going to be able to receive money from the National Center for Atmospheric Research to be provided as in-kind support of personnel, equipment, and modeling capabilities.
Farther the microphone from the mouth.
So with
somebody's wearing one of these, you know, if I turn my head.
We're going to go into recess for a few minutes.
Lose a little bit of that pickup.
House will come back to order. Representative Duran to House Bill 1244.
Thank you, Madam Chair. It's all about the air quality. I ask you for your support of 1244.
Seeing no further, Mr. Representative Rankin.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I move Amendment L002. J002, pardon me.
J002 has been
displayed.
properly moved and is displayed before us. Please proceed, Representative Rankin.
Madam Chairman, this supplemental spends $540,000 of precious general fund money to leverage another $1.5 million, roughly, of federal money to measure air quality in a limited part of the state. Madam Chairman, if, in fact, we're going to take air quality measurements that will then affect the regulations that are set for the whole state, then air quality ought to be measured for the whole state. Air quality is not the same on the Front Range or in northeastern or rural Colorado or the western slope. So although air quality measurements are important, and my own county, Garfield County, has led the way with a joint study with CSU to put up monitoring stations and measure air quality. This program does not give us statewide measurement. It does not help us find out how regulations for air quality should be set. There are very important hearings on rulemaking on air quality coming up this month. And one of the major things that has surfaced is that we should look at different parts of the state differently. So spending this much general fund money on measuring air quality for just one part of the state is inappropriate. I ask for your yes vote on this amendment.
Representative Duran.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And Representative Rankin, I do have a question for you. So will there be a federal match for these additional dollars as well?
Representative Rankin.
Yes, the amendment language is roughly $1.5 million of matching money.
Representative Duran.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I urge all to vote no on this. The funding that is going to be provided to FRAP, they already have a plan in place. And so we would be able to get the $1.15 million provided by the National Center for Atmospheric Research for the airplane and also in-kind support of personnel, equipment, and modeling capabilities. In terms of some of these other dollars and doing sort of a statewide effort, I think will be challenging. And this is outside of our negotiated JBC supplemental package, so encourage you to vote no.
Mr. Minority Leader.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So again, I would urge an aye vote on this amendment. Basically, the National Center for Atmospheric Research wants to come in and do a test. So they want to do an experiment here in the state of Colorado, and they want the taxpayers of Colorado to chip in a bunch of money so they can do an experiment here. If they want to do an experiment here, come do the experiment, but don't ask the people of Colorado to fit $500,000 of the experiment. So this is simply saying, if you want to do it, go ahead and do it. If you want to put your federal funds in and do the experiment, go ahead. But the people of Colorado are not going to pay $500,000, which can go to several different areas out there besides some kind of experimental research. So this amendment would save the taxpayers of Colorado $500,000. So I would urge an aye vote.
Seeing no further discussion, the question, Representative Scott.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And I would have to rise in support of Amendment J002 as well. I don't think it's a mystery where the air is bad. I mean, the mystery can be solved really quickly if we step outside the Capitol and look around us. So again, what's happening here is where somebody's calling this a statewide study. I don't understand how it can be a statewide study if we're just going to worry about the Front Range air quality problems that are existing because of the Front Range, not of the Western Slope. I can guarantee you there's a better use for this money west of the Continental Divide than to claim you've studied air quality again. And I would also ask, how does this affect or impact what the CDPHE is already doing on air quality right now and what those rules are looking like, or do they need to delay those rules and wait for this study to be completed?
Madam Majority Leader.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And the reason that that this is in the supplemental is that there wasn't enough money in the stationary cash fund, stationary source cash fund, which relates to the implementation of the state implementation plan for air quality that relates to non-attainment areas on the Front Range. And as you know, there are provisions in that plan that's approved by the EPA for the state of Colorado, and if we don't meet that plan, there are sanctions that are very significantly important. So although it may relate tangentially to the oil and gas issues that are being addressed by the Air Quality Control Commission, it really relates to the state implementation plan with regard to air quality, and that's why this study is being done on the Front Range rather than statewide, is to address that issue.
Representative Scott?
Thank you, Madam Chair, but I guess I need to remind everybody that the money comes from all of the people of the state of Colorado, not just the people in the Front Range. If there's an issue on the Front Range with the EPA, then the Front Range should deal with that and not put it on the backs of people from western Colorado that have no skin in the game and have not created the issue. I'd still ask for a yes vote on this amendment.
Madam Majority Leader?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Well, the sad fact of the matter is if you don't meet the requirements of your state implementation plan, if you're non-attainment, there are many sanctions that are involved, including HUTF funds, which will affect everybody in the state of Colorado. And it's been a state responsibility to move forward to help with non-attainment areas. There are all kinds of air quality regulations that relate to attainment areas and how that might impact your stationary sources as well as your highway funds.
Mr. Minority Leader.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And members, maybe, if you're down here more than 1 year, all the years start blending together and then they all start looking the same. But I've been here long enough that I actually was here for the state implementation plan and when we actually put that into place. And that wasn't last year. This bill that actually put this little Front Range air pollution thing into place, FRAP or whatever it is, into place, that was last year. So to think that this was built into the state implementation plan, and now if we don't pay $500,000 of taxpayer dollars to have a C-130 flying around northeastern Colorado to do some kind of experimental air testing, that we're going to somehow lose HUTF funds is absolutely disingenuous. That is not going to happen because this is not built into the state implementation plan. They were several years apart. So to think that way back then we thought that, oh my gosh, a couple years from now the feds are going to come to us and offer us this experimental program, and that if we don't take the experimental program that we're going to lose federal funds, that is incorrect. So this came last year. It has nothing to do with the state implementation plan. I would urge an aye vote on this and save the taxpayers of Colorado $500,000.
Representative Rankin.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And Representative Hollinghorst mentioned attainment areas and non-attainment areas, and this study is in non-attainment areas. That's absolutely true. However, the draft rules that CDPHE is implementing, or will implement after public hearings in some form, doesn't really recognize the difference between attainment and non-attainment areas. So what we do is we study those areas that have problems, the non-attainment areas, and then we apply that data across the whole state. That is our concern here. If we're going to have a high-powered study augmented by the federal government, let's look at the whole state. Let's look at those differences and be fair to the industry and to the communities who will be affected. So, I mean, the issue is really this should be a broader study. We should be looking at the whole state. And to spend this money out of the general fund is unnecessary.
Representative Buck.
Thank you. And in Weld County, the oil and gas industry has spent over $40 million in containing the emissions from oil and gas. We don't need a plane to run around to look for problems that don't exist. So please, I ask you to vote no, or support the amendment.
Seeing no further discussion, the question before us is the adoption of J002. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed, no. No. The noes have it. J002 is lost. Representative Duran to the bill.
Good bill, vote yes, please.
Seeing no further discussion, the question before us is the adoption of House Bill 1244. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed, no. No. The ayes have it. House Bill 1244 is adopted. Mr. Kohler, please read the title of House Bill 1245.
House Bill 1245, Representative Duran, all Senator Stebbins concerning supplemental appropriations of the Department of Public Safety.
Representative Duran.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move House Bill 1244, supplemental appropriation for the Department of Public Safety.
Seeing no further discussion, the question before us is the adoption of House Bill 1245. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed, no. The ayes have it. House Bill 1245 is adopted. Mr. Kohler, please read the title to House Bill 1246.
House Bill 1246, Representative Duran, all Senator Stebbins concerning supplemental appropriations of the Department of Revenue.
Representative Duran.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move House Bill 1246, supplemental appropriation for the Department of Revenue, and ask for your support.
Seeing no further discussion, the question before us is the adoption of House Bill 1246. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed, no. The ayes have it. House Bill 1246 is adopted. Mr. Kohler, please read the title to House Bill 1247.
House Bill 1247, Representative Duran, all Senator Stebbins concerning a supplemental appropriation of the Department of State.
Representative Duran.
I move House Bill 1247, a supplemental appropriation for the Department of State.
Representative Tyler.
Thank you, Madam Chair. What we discussed a bit ago about providing an excellent resource from the Office of Information Technology for somebody who's already there, an idea that we're not exactly wild about, but we want to make sure it happens for the state of Colorado. I move L001.
L001 has been moved and is properly displayed before us. Please explain the amendment, Representative Tyler.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This is a footnote that asks the Department of State Elections Division, say it's the intent of the General Assembly that $110,000 be appropriated to the Governor's Office of Information Technology for their use to provide a program manager for the web-based upgrade to the statewide voter registration system, SCORE, and I ask for an aye vote.
Seeing no further discussion, Representative Giroux.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Representative Tyler, you know that a footnote is not enforceable and it's basically a letter to Santa Claus. Is there a reason you decided to put this in as a footnote?
Representative Tyler.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And this is the way that the excellent JBC staff suggested this proceed forward. And as I had mentioned before, the Office of the Secretary of State and the Deputy Secretary of State and the Program Manager for the Secretary of State see that this is a very good possibility for them to move forward and will be very helpful to make sure we have a good program up to the end, to make sure we have a good program for the election this year. And I understand that it's a letter to Santa Claus, but it's one the Secretary of State thinks would be wise.
Representative Giroux.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And so this is a letter to Santa Claus, and you yourself just said that the Secretary of State's office said that there's a very good chance that this can go forward. So basically what we're doing, based on a letter to Santa Claus, we're going to take $500,000, is that how we're taking? What is it, $110,000 general fund away from K through 12, and we're going to give it to the Secretary. And, if it's excess dollars, the dollars are going to be whatever we have left over at the end of the year, which would normally go to K through 12. So we're taking $110,000 away from K through 12 to send a letter to Santa Claus in the form of an ask to the Secretary of State's office to take dollars away from education. I ask for a no vote. This is shocking.
Representative Duran, pardon me.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I ask for a no vote as well.
Seeing no further discussion, the question before us is the adoption of L001 to House Bill 1247. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed, no. No. The ayes have it. L001 is adopted. To the bill, Representative Duran.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I ask for your support.
Seeing no further discussion on House Bill 1247, all those in favor of House Bill 1247 as amended, please signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed, no. The ayes have it. House Bill 1247 is adopted. Mr. Kohler, please read the title of House Bill 1248.
House Bill 1248, Representative Duran, all Senator Stebbins, concerning a supplemental appropriation of the Department of the Treasury.
Representative Duran.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move House Bill 1248, Department of the Treasury, supplemental appropriation.
Seeing no further discussion on House Bill 1248, the question before us is the adoption of House Bill 1248. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed, no. The ayes have it. House Bill 1248 is adopted. Mr. Kohler, please read the title of House Bill 1249.
House Bill 1249, Representative Duran, all Senator Stebbins, concerning funding for capital construction and making supplemental appropriations in connection therewith.
Representative Duran.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move House Bill 1249, capital construction supplemental appropriation. Ask for your support.
Seeing no further discussion, the question before us is the adoption of House Bill 1249. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed, no. The ayes have it. House Bill 1249 is adopted. Mr. Kohler, please read the title of House Bill 1250.
House Bill 1250, Representative May, also Senator Stebbins, concerning authorizing payments from the contingency reserve from the 2013-14 budget year for school districts that are in significant financial need due to unanticipated events occurring in the 2013-14 budget year in connection with making an appropriation.
Representative May.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move House Bill 1250 and ask for your support.
Seeing no further discussion on House Bill 1250, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye. All opposed, no. The ayes have it. House Bill 1250 is adopted. Mr. Kohler, please read the title of House Bill 1251.
House Bill 1251, Representative May, also Senator Stebbins, concerning adjustments in the amount of total program funding for public schools for the 2013-14 budget year in connection with making an appropriation.
Representative May.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move House Bill 1251 and ask for your support.
Seeing no further discussion on House Bill 1250, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed, no. The ayes have it. House Bill 1251 is adopted. Mr. Kohler, please read the title of House Bill 1252.
House Bill 1252, Representatives May and Giroux, also Senator Hodge, concerning funding for system capacity changes related to intellectual and developmental disability waiver services in connection with making and reducing appropriations.
Our esteemed Joint Budget Committee members, Representative May.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move House Bill 1252 and ask for your support.
Seeing no discussion, Representative Giroux.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Members, for the last 2 years, the DD community, we basically sent money back to the general fund under supplemental process because the real issue is the departments are not ready to spend the money that we want to have spent out in the areas because the service providers have not had adequate time to take care of their preparations. That being said, and I'm not a huge fan of HCPF or Human Services when it comes to DD. I ask for your support. This is going to bring the dollars back. You may be aware that a couple years ago, the Joint Budget Committee, when I chaired the Joint Budget Committee, we set up the Community Living Advisory Group, and that was basically to create the plan for how the needs of the DD community. So this is now going to be a plan on top of a plan. I'm sorry, I can't hardly hear. There's so much giggling in the well here. But what this actually is going to do is, supposedly, this is going to create a new plan, and we're hopeful that the DD clients get the help that they need because the state of Colorado does want to help this group of people. I think this legislature has been very supportive. I ask for an aye vote.
Seeing no further discussion, the question before us is the adoption of House Bill 1252. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed, no. The ayes have it. House Bill 1252 is adopted. Mr. Kohler, please read the title to House Bill 1103.
House Bill 1103, Representative Pabon, also Senator Harvey, concerning the criteria that certain securities must meet to qualify as legal investments for public funds.
Representative Pabon.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move House Bill 1103. There is no committee report.
To the bill.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And real briefly, because the Majority Leader and I have been working on an amendment to slightly tweak the bill. This is an update to the municipal securities that are allowed by counties to invest in, and this was a unanimous vote out of Finance Committee. It's a alignment of our statutes. If you remember House Bill 1005, we had a similar change, and I'm going to let the Majority Leader offer her amendment. With that, I ask for an aye vote with the amendment.
Madam Majority Leader.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move Amendment L004 and ask that it be displayed.
Amendment L004 has been properly moved and is displayed before us. To the amendment, Madam Majority Leader.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And as the Assistant Majority Leader indicated, this is a bill that provides some additional flexibility and modernizes investment in local government, municipal and state general obligation and revenue obligation bonds. And the most important thing with regard to investment, particularly of these are taxpayers' dollars, the priority is safety. The second priority is yield on behalf of those taxpayers. And with the changes that were made with the original bill, it was felt that we needed to tweak that a little bit to make sure that balance was adequate. I believe that this amendment does that, and I ask for a yes vote.
Seeing no further discussion, the question before us is the adoption of L004 as an amendment to House Bill 1103. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. The ayes have it. L004 is adopted. To the bill, Representative Duran. Pabon. Representative Pabon.
Thank you.
It's on automatic.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I must have done my hair extra special today. With that amendment, this is a very good bill, and ask for an aye vote.
Seeing no further discussion, the question before us is the adoption of House Bill 1103. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. All opposed, no. The ayes have it. House Bill 1103 is adopted. Mr. Kohler, please read the title of House Bill 1065. Madam Majority Leader.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move to lay over House Bill 1065 to the end of the calendar.
House Bill 1065 will be laid over as the Majority Leader requested. Mr. Kohler, please read the title of House Bill 1110. Madam Majority Leader.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I apologize. I could have done these both at once. I move to lay over House Bill 1110 to the end of the calendar.
House Bill 1110 will be laid over upon the request of the Majority Leader. Mr. Kohler, please read the title of House Bill 1008.
House Bill 1008 by Representative Hamner, Senator Schwartz, concerning the authorization of the Colorado Water Resources and Power Development Authority to make loans to private entities for purposes of forest health projects.
Representative Hamner.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move House Bill 1008 and the report from the Committee on Agriculture, Livestock, and Natural Resources.
Thank you, Representative Hamner. To the committee report.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The committee report slightly amended the bill to clarify about liens being filed in what order, and also clarified the definition of private entity. I ask for your support on the committee report.
Seeing no further no further discussion, the question before us is the adoption of the committee report for House Bill 1008. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. All opposed, no. The ayes have it. The Ag, Livestock, and Natural Resources report is adopted. To the bill, Representative Hamner.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And colleagues, House Bill 1008 comes to us from the Wildfire Matters Interim Committee that I had the pleasure to serve as the Vice Chair on this summer. And it basically allows for private entities involved in forest health projects to be included as recipients of a loan through the Colorado Water Resources Development Authority. And I ask for your support of House Bill 1008.
Seeing no further discussion, the question before us is the adoption of House Bill 1008 as amended. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. All opposed, no. The ayes have it. House Bill 1008 is adopted. Mr. Kohler, please read the title to House Bill 1018.
House Bill 1018 by Representative Hamner, also Senator Stedman, concerning the requirement that the Department of Revenue prepare a tax profile and expenditure report every 2 years.
Representative Hamner.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move House Bill 1018. There are no committee reports.
Thank you. To the bill.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Colleagues, House Bill 1018 passed unanimously out of the Finance Committee. It continues the publication of the tax expenditure report that is a huge effort towards taxpayer transparency, and I ask for your support of House Bill 1018.
Seeing no further discussion, Mr. Minority Leader.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And Representative Hamner, I wasn't there for the committee hearing. Does this extend it indefinitely, or are they going to have to come back every couple of years and say, do we want to continue this? Was there a mechanism with that?
Representative Hamner.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, Mr. Minority Leader. Right now, the way the statute is written, if the department doesn't have the revenue to publish the report, they can discontinue it. So this puts the appropriation for the report in their budget, and there is no appropriation this year, but it assures that the report will continue as part of their regular budget request in ensuing years.
Seeing no further discussion, the question before us is the adoption of House Bill 1018. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. All opposed, no. The ayes have it. House Bill 1018 is adopted. Mr. Kohler, please read, Madam Majority Leader.
Madam Chair, I request a brief recess.
The House will go into a brief recess. The House will come back to order. Madam Majority Leader.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move to lay over Senate Bill 19.
Senate Bill 19
until the end of the calendar.
Senate Bill 19 will be laid over as requested. Mr. Kohler, please read the title to House Bill 1112.
House Bill 1112 by Representative Lebsack, also Senator Ulibarri, concerning limited authorization for county clerk and recorder to redact the first 5 digits of the Social Security number from public document filed by the clerk and recorder at the request of the individuals to whom the Social Security number is assigned.
Representative Lebsack.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move the committee report from Local Government Committee and ask for a favorable approval.
Would you move the bill to, Representative?
Yes, ma'am. I also move House Bill 141112.
Thank you. To the committee report.
Thank you, Madam Chair. There was one minor amendment that was made in committee. It was pointed out to me by the clerk and recorders that it's more appropriate to use the word recorded rather than filed, and so that's the change that the committee made.
Big change. Any further discussion on the local government report to House Bill 1112? Seeing none, the question before us is the adoption of the local government report. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. All opposed, no. The local government report is adopted. Representative Lebsack, to the bill.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move House Bill 1112.
Seeing no further discussion, the question before us is the adoption of House Bill 1112 as amended. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. All opposed, no. The ayes have it. House Bill 1112 is adopted. Mr. Kohler, please read the title to House Bill 1129.
House Bill 1129 by Representative Lebsack, also Senator Hodge, concerning the submission by a state agency to a local government of information related to an application to local government to approve a major utility facility.
Representative Lebsack.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This is just your run-of-the-mill good government efficiency bill, and I move House Bill 1129.
Seeing no further discussion, the question before us is the adoption of House Bill 1129, the good government bill. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. All opposed, no. No! The ayes have it. House Bill 1129 is adopted. Mr. Kohler, please read the title to House Bill 1130.
House Bill 1130, Representative McCann, also Senator Ulibarri, concerning the disposition of monies charged to borrowers for costs to be paid in connection with foreclosure.
Representative McCann.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move House Bill 1130 and the committee report from the Committee on Local Government.
Thank you. To the committee report, please.
Yes, the committee simply amended this bill to specify that a signer or a designee of the signer could file an amended cure statement. So I would ask for an aye vote on the committee report.
Seeing no further discussion, the question before us is the adoption of the local government report. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. All opposed, no. The ayes have it. The local government report is adopted. Representative McCann to the bill.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This bill corrects a practice that some public trustees have had in the past of providing excess funds back to a lender when a borrower has provided those funds to cure a default. This bill will say that if there are excess funds provided by the borrower to the public trustee, that the trustee will return those excess funds to the borrower instead of the lender. It's a great bill. We had several public trustees testify in support, including Paul Weissman, our former House representative and senator, supporting this bill, and it came out of committee unanimously. So I would ask for oh, I'm sorry, I forgot. I have another amendment to this. I have a small amendment to this bill. So I would move House Bill 002 and ask that it be displayed. Amendment L002 and ask that it be displayed.
L002 has been properly moved and is displayed to the amendment. Representative McCann.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The amendment came at the request of the mortgage lenders just to clarify that if an amended default statement is submitted, the bill requires that it be submitted at least 10 calendar days before the effective date of the original cure statement, and the lenders were worried about having enough time before the sale to do this. So actually it was Representative Weissman who suggested that if there is a new cure statement provided, but not within the time limit, that the trustee could continue the sale. So I would ask for adoption of L002.
Seeing no further discussion, the question before us is the adoption of L002 as an amendment to House Bill 1130. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. The ayes have it. L002 is adopted.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Representative McCann, back to the bill.
Yes, I think I finished my discussion of the bill. It's a good bill supported by the public trustees, and I would ask for an aye vote.
Seeing no further discussion, the question before us is the adoption of House Bill 1130 as amended. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. All opposed, no. The ayes have it. House Bill 1130 is adopted. Madam Majority Leader.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move to lay over House Bill 1030 to the end of the calendar.
House Bill 1030 will be laid over as the Majority Leader has requested. I think we are back to House Bill 1021. Mr. Kohler, please read the title to House Bill 1021, beginning of our calendar.
House Bill 1021, Representatives Mitch Bush and Hamner, also Senator Schwartz, concerning the penalty for violating a road restriction.
Representative Ms. Bush.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move House Bill 1021 and the Transportation Committee report. There is no committee report from Approps.
To the Transportation and Energy report, please.
Thank you, Madam Chair. In the Transportation and Energy Committee, there were amendments that were the result of a stakeholder process that essentially clarified mile markers in which this violation would be fined for. It also clarified that the restriction was all combination vehicles, both combination, non-combination, over 35 feet, traveling on Independence Pass.
Is there any further discussion on the Transportation and Energy report? Seeing none, the question before us is the adoption of the Transportation and Energy report. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed, no. The ayes have it. The Transportation and Energy report is adopted. To the bill, Representative Hamner.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Colleagues, House Bill 1021 is a very important bill for people who travel and use Independence Pass on Highway 82 between Lake County and Pitkin County. What the bill does is increases fines and signage with the hope that truckers and our recreational vehicles over 35 feet know way ahead of time that they are not to be on Independence Pass, and will hopefully turn around so that we don't have any serious safety issues on Independence Pass, and I ask for your support.
Representative Mitch Bush.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I would add to what Representative Hamner presented that this bill is the result, first, of much discussion in the TLRC, the Transportation Legislative Review Committee. Then after that, we had a very inclusive several meetings with all the stakeholders, including the truckers, Pitkin County, Colorado State Patrol, Colorado Department of Transportation, and Colorado counties. And there were a number of compromises made. I would note again for clarity that the fine for violating the existing law that is going over Independence Pass, it's been illegal to go over for about 25 years with a vehicle 35 feet or longer, is $1,000. If the vehicle goes over the pass, tries to go over the pass and blocks a lane, it is $1,500. There is no cell service in this area, and so if a lane is blocked, not only are those in and near the vehicle in trouble, but those who may be recreating, and there are many of them up in the pass, may also be in trouble because Pitkin County can't get emergency services to them.
Representative Coram.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This was a bill that was discussed along during the summer and in the TLRC, as mentioned. I was in opposition to the bill at that time. It was far too broad, had ramifications that were certainly not positive. But thanks to the bill sponsors, they worked their way through that and actually address the problem without penalizing the rest of the state. So I'm supportive of the bill. Thank you.
Representative Sonnenberg.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And members, it's a good idea to make sure that people understand that it's not safe and it doesn't make sense to take a truck up through there. I can tell you the fines and the fees that are associated with this will have no deterrent. People don't know that when they do it. Instead of spending money and ask for fines and fees, let's put up more signs so people understand and educate those folks so they don't go up over the mountain. Because quite frankly, the fine doesn't do them any good. Let's keep them off of that road by simply educating them. I would urge you to vote no on the bill until we get an amendment to make sure those fines are taken out.
Representative Mitch Bush.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Once again, I would reiterate the truckers are in favor of this bill. We worked very hard with them, with Pitkin County, with Colorado State Patrol. Right now, there are a total of 14 signs. About half of them are on the east side of Independence Pass and about half are on west. All of them tell, and it's not just truckers, by the way, it's all vehicles over 35 feet. Those signs tell individuals that it is illegal to drive such a vehicle over the pass. They do not, however, mention a fine. One of the expenses is, with this bill and as part of the bill is that CDOT would change the signs to talk about that fine. And we are certainly hoping that we'll never see the fine. Also, Pitkin County is working closely with the truckers to work on the GPS problem, which is not in the bill, but it was something we discussed in our various stakeholder meetings.
Representative Rankin.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. You don't often get to talk about a bill with as much personal interest as I do this one. Until you followed a 40-foot truck down that hill at about 40 miles an hour on your bicycle, you don't really, you don't understand the problem. And it's not just trucks, by the way. There are a lot of people who drive their 40-foot RVs from Aspen up over that hill, and they really need to be impressed with the fine. This is a public safety issue. I have personal friends who've been injured on that hill because of traffic on that hill. It's my favorite bike ride. Vote yes.
Representative Buck.
Thank you, Madam. And I have been on that Independence Pass, not by my choosing, but the GPS sent me there. And there is no forgiveness, there is no probation, there's nothing. And I can't even imagine a truck going over that pass. But my point is that I think this fine is absolutely over the top. And I think we need, again, more signage, more education before we just penalize so harshly on the truckers. Thank you.
Representative Mitch Bush.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Representative Buck. Again, I would remind my colleagues that the truckers are in favor of this bill, and this bill is a public safety bill, and there is plenty of warning before turning around. And in addition, Pitkin County has experienced an upsurge in these incidences of people breaking the law. That's why we're proposing this fine.
Representative Coram.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And as I said, this bill was talked about a lot in committee. Colorado Motor Carriers is in support of this bill, but I think I really need to address the situation that we talked to CDOT about this, that better signage is necessary before this problem happens. But we're talking about the trucking industry here, and in reality, the trucking industry is part of the problem. It's out-of-state carriers that we're not using a commercial GPS, but also it applies to all vehicles over 35 feet, which many motorhomes and travel trailers will exceed that. So it's something that we need to address. When one of those units gets up there and actually closes that road, it can cost thousands and thousands of dollars to get recovery vehicles up there. So I think this is something that will make all the travelers of that pass take a look at and realize that they do not belong there. And, you know, it's a couple of hours going around, but it can save them thousands of dollars, and hopefully we'll get this to in a hurry. Thank you.
Representative Sonnenberg.
Well, thank you. And Representative Coram brings up a good point. And when he says out-of-state trucks come in here, they indeed won't know what those fines and things are. So how do we get them to not go up and utilize that road? Because the fines will not act as a deterrent. They have to be educated on that. Yeah. And unfortunately, I was too slow. We passed the committee report, or I'd run an amendment to address that. Maybe even give you more money to help with the signs, but as I said, I don't think the fines help address the problem, so I'm going to have to be a no on the bill just for that purpose.
Seeing no further discussion, the question before us is the adoption of House Bill 1021 as amended. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed, no. The ayes have it. House Bill 1021 is adopted. Madam Majority Leader.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move that the House proceed out of order to consider, the committee proceed out of order to consider House Bill 1110.
House Bill 1110. Mr. Kohler, please read the title of House Bill 1110.
House Bill 1110 by Representative Peniston, Senator Hodge, concerning procedures governing discussions by boards of education of school districts while meeting in executive session.
Representative Peniston.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move House Bill 1110.
To the bill, please.
And there is no committee report.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Colleagues, this is a transparency accountability bill, which we are very vigilant about down here for all public officials in our state. And this is particularly directed towards school boards. Constituents came from several different school districts, not just one, not just two, several different, none of which I shall name because the point of this is not to be punitive on a particular school district. What this bill requires is continuous recording of executive sessions, even when the discussion is claimed by the representative attorney to be privileged. The bill also requires a local school board to keep a privilege log to identify the approximate times the privileged discussion takes place and the nature of the communication, without revealing details of the privileged information discussed. These portions of an executive session may be recorded separately, separate from the rest of the executive session, and that is what this bill does. I ask for your yes vote.
Representative Gardner.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Well, members, with respect to my colleague, Representative Peniston, this is not good public policy. First of all, it imposes a requirement upon your school boards that no other public body must observe. In particular, what is very problematic about the bill is the requirement that those discussions held with an attorney in executive session, which are, in the opinion of counsel, attorney-client privileged, must be recorded. Since those conversations are always and forever supposed to be between the client, that is the board, and the counsel, they should not be recorded. Secondly, the idea that the amount of time that would be spent in these discussions, and there might be multiple ones. I can tell you as a counsel that has advised various boards over the course of time, we may go into executive session and have a discussion that's attorney-client privilege in which we may discuss 2 or 3 things. If opposing counsel is able to look at the public record and know that I spent 45 minutes talking about the one thing that was of interest to them, they may be able to divine that it was a matter of some contentiousness versus the 5-minute discussion I had on the other matter. The notion that the school board would also maintain a privileged log is something that no other public body has to do. It would allow opposing counsel of your elected school boards to have a window of information into things that they discuss with their attorney, which makes them less likely to discuss these things with their attorney, makes them less inclined to get free and open legal advice. For those of you who are attorneys, you should, and I think do, understand this immediately, that it is not good public policy because it basically deprives these boards of free and open legal advice in the context which helps them avoid problems, ensures that they are getting the very best advice from their counsel without disclosing what the topic is, other than in a very rudimentary and generic way that has to be disclosed when the board goes into executive session. Members, this bill has been here before. This bill has come in various forms, but it is a bill that is an attempt, frankly, on the part of certain organizations to try to get a window on what is discussed in labor negotiations, amongst other things, employee termination negotiations and discussions. And again, it is only about the legal advice. That is the only thing that is not recorded and about which there should not be a privileged log. Members, I would ask for no vote.
Representative Peniston.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And colleagues, I get the discomfort with the attorney-client privilege. I get that. But for whatever reason, a lot of our boards in the state of Colorado already do this and don't seem to have an issue with it with their attorneys. In addition, the states of Illinois, Iowa, North Dakota, and Utah all require closed executive sessions to be audio recorded in their entirety always. So we are not dismantling the American judicial system with this bill, and I ask for your yes vote.
Representative Priola.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Members, we heard testimony both for and against this bill in House Education, and what struck me is the possibility or the implied fact that this will happen going forward, the increased litigation school districts will have to deal with the increased costs, the fishing expeditions that the wording change in this bill will create for school boards in the state of Colorado going forward. So it's with that concern that school districts and school boards are actually able to continue educating our kids and spending less money on lawyers and litigation that I move L002 and ask that it be displayed.
L002 has been properly moved and will soon be displayed.
So members, if you have your,
002 is before us. Please proceed.
thank you, Madam Chair. Members, if you have your bill open, it's basically strikes lines 19 through 25, bottom of page 3, as well as lines 8 through 14, page 4. This would make it more clear that the attorney-client privilege that has existed in this state stays in this state while still allowing for the fact that you will have to mark or categorize the issues that were discussed, but precluding that you will have to have a tape of the entire discussion. With that, I ask, this is a good policy, good amendment. With that, I ask for an aye vote.
Representative Peniston.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This is not a friendly amendment. I ask for your no on this amendment.
Seeing no further discussion, a division has been called. The question of the adoption of L002, that's the question. A division has been requested. All those in the chamber not entitled to vote, please be seated. All those in favor of L002, please stand and remain standing in one place until the count is taken. You may be seated. All those opposed to L002, please stand and remain standing in one place until the count is taken. You may be seated. L002 is lost. Representative Foote.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Madam Chair, at this time I move Amendment L009.
L009 has been moved and is properly displayed to the amendment. Representative Foote.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And members, sensitive, I think, as many people are in this chamber, to attorney-client privilege. And one thing that I noticed when I was reading over the original text of the bill is that it wasn't quite clear what would be happening with these recordings and what procedure would be used if the recordings were requested. So this amendment is designed to make it clear that the recordings, if requested under CORA, for example, under the Sunshine Law, would follow the same procedure that others are in these circumstances. So, for example, the recording would be requested. It would go to a judge. A judge would make a determination about whether or not this material actually is privileged. And if the judge determines in an in-camera review whether or not it's privileged, the judge would, if the judge made a determination that it was attorney-client privilege or subject to attorney-client privilege, then the judge would not release it. If, on the other hand, the judge made a determination that the material that was claimed to be privileged was in fact not attorney-client privilege, then the judge would release it. And so it just makes it clear. My understanding was that was the intent of the bill anyway, but I think this makes it clear in black letter law that this in fact would happen, just like we do with other provisions under the Sunshine Act. So I would ask for a yes vote on L009.
Representative Peniston?
Thank you, Madam Chair and colleagues. This is a friendly amendment. This makes adds a lot more comfort to the whole process to make sure that it actually says in the bill that the processes that are in place for this kind of thing are part of this bill. So I ask for a yes vote on this amendment on L009.
Representative Priola?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Members, the mere offering of this amendment shows the inherent weakness in this bill and the underlying language in this bill. This is exactly what's going to happen. There are going to be fishing expeditions of interest groups to tie up our school boards and throw it into the courts where judges are going to have to sit and decide, is this attorney-client or isn't it? Is this attorney-client or isn't it? The whole time the meter's running and money and resources are being taken away from our kids to pay for lawyers' fees. And then we get an amendment like this, sole intent to clarify what's going to happen anyway. I'm not going to make a bad bill a little bit better. Vote no.
Representative Gardner?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Well, members, Representative Priola is correct. The very offering of this amendment demonstrates the difficulty with the bill overall. Now, for those of you who have a law license and practice here, if you're really comfortable with having your attorney-client privilege communications with your client being reviewed by the court, then you and I must have gone to different law schools for sure. And we must have studied for law in a different legal system, because I'm not really interested in having the court review my conversations with my clients to determine whether my conversations with my clients, which are by their very nature privileged, are in fact privileged. And Representative Priola points out something that I can tell you, it's one of those moments, I guess I have to say, it's one of those moments I've had here over 8 years where I say to you, you know, the lawyer me sees a great deal of opportunity here. The public policy me sees that this is bad public policy. So for someone who from time to time, not frequently, but from time to time may represent a party in front of a school board, I know that each and every time that I have the opportunity, and I know that that board has had a attorney-client privilege communication, I'm going to file a CORA request and I'm going to make them prove it at the courthouse, because if I can win and it isn't, then I have gold. I have gold. And frankly, to not do it, unless my client instructs me otherwise, to not do it would probably be substandard as far as practice is concerned. Because now I can get the conversation between the client and their lawyer. How many lawyers would like to have that? I'm actually a little squeamish asking for it because I know it violates and is contrary to every notion of the attorney-client privilege that I know and understand in our legal system. Yes, this does clarify who's going to make the decision, and so it's some improvement, but it is an improvement that demonstrates quite clearly what the difficulty is, and that Representative Priola is right. We are going to simply have to litigate every time someone is terminated and there's any advice given whatsoever. And by the way, the default position of most judges is probably going to be, oh, it's privilege, but they're going to listen. They're going to listen. And I make the presumption when I sit and talk with clients about their case at all, both the client and I assume properly and correctly that that is privilege, period, that no one else will hear that conversation. The client can express whatever they wish to express, whatever motivation, however good or bad. Sometimes I advise clients in those situations, that's not a good motivation and you shouldn't go there. Sometimes they behave contrary to my advice. I'm sure that doesn't happen to my two colleagues standing here in the well, but sometimes my clients don't follow my advice. Wouldn't that be gold? Wouldn't that be gold to have? And what would a judge sitting there who might subsequently have the case before him or her concerning the termination, or maybe it's all brought as part of the case. Maybe it is part of the overall case. What does a judge do? What if it's a bench trial? Members, this is a better amendment, but it, by the very bringing of it, demonstrates what is wrong with this bill.
Representative Salazar.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And let's dispel a particular myth here. Attorney-client privilege is not an absolute privilege. It could be abrogated in all sorts of ways. The client can abrogate that privilege if the client wants to, or even the attorney can if the attorney just happens to release attorney-client privileged information on over to a requesting party. In fact, I've had that in one of my cases where opposing counsel has released information to me and refused to provide a privilege log, and then later on claimed it was attorney-client privilege, and Chief Judge Wiley Daniel of the federal court said no, attorney-client privilege has been waived. This here clarifies exactly what the guardrails are. And in most cases, when there is a debate about attorney-client privilege, in most cases it goes to a judge anyway. And it's the judge who makes that decision after doing an in-camera review of the privileged communication. This doesn't establish any other standard that already doesn't exist in law today. And this whole idea of, well, what if this or what if that, and trying to bring the boogeyman into creating an abrogation of attorney-client privilege, that ain't happening. Because as Representative Gardner knows, and I don't know if we went to the same law school or not, the judge will decide it, as a judge decides it in every case out there. This is a good amendment. Please vote yes.
Representative Foote.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And one thing I just wanted to add, and thank you, Representative Salazar, for that explanation. We're not talking about new ground in the procedure for releasing information here. Already under the Sunshine Law, under 246402, we have this procedure. That's why the amendment was written the way it is to comport with what we already have. When it comes time for a determination to be made whether or not the communication was actually under attorney-client privilege, then we refer back to 246402 and the subsections there to see what the procedure is. It goes to an in-camera review. A judge determines yes or no, whether or not it was privileged. So we're not talking about something that's led to massive amounts of litigation and some of the parade of horribles that we've heard. This has been in our statutes for quite a while, this procedure, and this just mirrors the procedure that we already have in those cases where there's a question about whether or not it's actually attorney-client privilege.
Representative Gardner.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Well, Representative Salazar, Representative Foote, I guess we can characterize this down here in the well any way we want to. This is a major change in the law. Yes, that procedure exists. What doesn't exist now is the requirement to record the advice and make it available to the court. That doesn't exist. Doesn't exist in the law now. And so to say we're not making a change here, well, I guess you can say anything in the well. But we are making a change. We're requiring this legal advice to be recorded, and therefore it exists in a recorded form so that it can be reviewed by a judge who may be hearing the case to decide whether or not any of it, a sentence of it, a piece of it, ought to be released. Now, Representative Salazar, I've never been involved in a case of abrogating the attorney-client privilege, and knock on wood, it's every lawyer's nightmare. It happens. It's every lawyer's nightmare, because that is a voluntary disclosure where the privilege no longer exists. It is not somebody who second guesses me and says, well, I don't think your advice, Mr. Gardner, is entitled to the privilege for whatever reason. It's unimaginable to me to start with. It is unimaginable. The way this process works, members, since everybody seems intent on telling you how it works, the way this works is you sit there with your client, the board, in executive session, and they're recording and recording and recording everything because they're required to do it. And it's not privileged. And then there comes a moment when you want to discuss the item that is the subject of litigation or a legal strategy or something, and the lawyer states on the record that it is my advice that the discussions we are going to have on XYZ matter involve legal advice, the attorney-client privilege. I don't have my little cheat sheet in front of me to give you the exact words because they're out there. And therefore, I'm instructing the board that they may turn off the recorder so that this material is not made record, so that I may give free, clear, open legal advice to the Board of Education. That's what happens. And when that's done, the recorder goes back on, and we say we've returned the recorder back on at such and such time. And that we've completed our discussion of attorney-client privilege matter, and the board probably then, if they have other matters, discusses them, leaves executive session, and goes into open public session. Currently, every public board subject to the Open Meetings Act follows that procedure. What this bill does is make a special exception for your school boards. It makes an exception for your school boards. As I stand here, you know, the lawyer side of my brain, as opposed to the state representative side of my brain, is already thinking of multiple ways to use this on behalf of my charter school clients who must negotiate with school boards, or my clients who have an individual education plan, an IEP, or a Section 504 rehabilitation plan that may want some different services from a school board. And I'm thinking of all the ways that I can, and I'm not even, you know, that's over here on the other side of my brain when I'm not even really concentrating on it. I can think of all the ways that I can drive the school board to just not litigate the matter with me because they can't afford to do so. Don't be misled. This is a change in public policy of a major proportion. Even if you vote yes on this bill.
Representative Gardner, we're on the amendment. I thought you were talking to the amendment.
My apologies, Madam Chair. Even if you vote on this amendment, make no mistake, it involves a major change in our public policy. And to say, oh, no, 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 this amendment fixes it all, this amendment keeps it from being that way, that is just not so. Now, you may agree with it, but don't walk away from here and say, oh, it was just a small change. It's a sea change, which seems to be the phrase of art in the Judiciary Committee these days. Things are a sea change in public policy. Well, this is a sea change in public policy, and this amendment makes it clear that it is.
Representative McLaughlin.
Thank you, Madam Chair. You know, I may be one of the newest lawyers in this House, but I'm one of the oldest lawyers in this House. And therefore, I've had some experiences with this issue in my professional life. First of all, I was a county attorney for La Plata County for 3.5 years, dealt daily with the issues of open meetings, public records, etc. For a number of years, my law firm represented School District 9R. I may shock you by letting you know that for the last at least 10 years, School District 9R has recorded all of its executive sessions. It seems to be the practice that is prevalent in my area. So this is not a sea change. What this amendment will do is just simply codify the existing practices in a large part of the state. Those of us who have served as public lawyers recognize that a public lawyer is different than the lawyer for the mafia. The attorney-client privilege, and you're often challenged in your interpretation of what is the public interest. What is your role as a public lawyer? When you're advising the school board, should you only advise the school board and the majority and the people that employ you? Or should you step up and say, these are the public responsibilities? And this is one of the issues I think that is clear, is that transparency in school board meetings and all public meetings is the not a sea change, it's the law of the land, and it's something from which the public will tremendously benefit. So what this amendment does, it simply codifies existing practice in many areas of the state, and it's a good amendment, and I would ask for your support for this amendment.
Representative Kagan.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Members, whatever you think about the underlying issue, whether or not attorney-client privileged information discussions should be at least recorded, whatever you think of that, I urge you to vote yes on this amendment, because without this amendment, rather ambiguously, the bill would state that other parties are enabled to assess the applicability of the privilege or the right to protection. Here it says, no, those other parties aren't the people that are assessing this, it's the court that's assessing this. It's obviously better to have a court assessing the applicability of the privilege than undefined other parties. And so regardless of what you think about the underlying bill, the bill is made better, or if you oppose the bill, less damaging with passage of this amendment. I urge and I vote on this amendment.
Representative McNulty.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And Representative McLaughlin, I think the difference in the situation that you gave is the client made the decision to record those meetings. It wasn't mandated by state law. And the intrusion that Representative Gardner, who is, I think, the most capable lawyer among us here in the State House.
Representative McNulty, I beg your pardon.
Representative Labuda, you're a close second. Representative Foote, I don't know where you line up in that lineup, but I'm sure you're top 65. Someplace in there.
Just behind Representative.
the intrusion that Representative Gardner has correctly pointed out in the attorney-client relationship between the school board and their attorney. Representative Kagan, I agree with your assessment that this amendment does offer some protections for those who wish to retain that privileged communication. Representative Salazar, if an attorney accidentally forgoes the attorney-client privilege, that is much different than the state demanding that the privilege be set aside. But all that being equal, we're here today talking about transparency, and I appreciate Representative McLaughlin's view that more transparency is better than less. And I know that we have this conversation from time to time down here, and I think that overall that is the perspective that we should have. And in that light, I offer Amendment L005 as a substitute to Amendment L009 and ask that it be displayed.
I'm waiting, Representative McNulty, because I'm not sure that this really comes under the First Amendment, which it is substituting. Representative McNulty?
Thank you, Madam Chair. L005 deals directly with an exemption that currently exists under 2642-206, I think is the statute that we had identified in the underlying amendment.
Okay, please proceed.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
The
Colleagues,
amendment has been moved and is properly before us.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Amendment L005 deals directly with this idea of transparency. Representative Peniston, you're familiar with this amendment. It was offered in committee. We had some level of conversation there. It's in a bit of a different form as a second reading amendment. The juxt and the end is still the same. Amendment L005 would remove the current exemption under state law for collective bargaining agreements. Under current law, collective bargaining agreements are exempt from disclosure under the Open Records Act. So one of the most important functions that a school board does, one of the most critical functions a school board does, is secluded from public view. How are they going to negotiate with the unions? How are they going to enter in to these collective bargaining agreements? What instructions are they going to give to their negotiators? That's the question that we have in front of us right now. So for those of you who have been talking about transparency today, for those of you who are talking about how important it is that more information be made available than less, you have the opportunity to cast that vote now. Will we put the public's right to know ahead of powerful unions? Will we put the public's right to know ahead of powerful collective bargaining negotiations? Will we put the public's right to know ahead of the level of secrecy that is currently shrouding collective bargaining agreements and those collective bargaining negotiations?
Representative
I ask for
McNulty?
an aye in favor of L005 and in favor of transparency. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Representative McNulty, I'm looking again, since I don't know what is contained in 246402, I'm going to call a recess so I can look at the statute to see if this does indeed come. The House is in recess. House will come back to order. Representative McNulty.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I withdraw Amendment L005.
L005 has been withdrawn. Representative Peniston.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Madam Chair, I move, excuse me, Amendment L00. Oh, sorry. Sorry, I'm out of order, Madam Chair.
We're at L009. Is there any further discussion on L009? Seeing none, the question before us is the adoption of L009. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed, no. The ayes have it. L009 is adopted. Back to the bill, Representative Peniston.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Sorry for that glitch. I move L007 and ask that it be displayed properly.
L007 has been properly moved. Thank you. And is displayed before us. Please proceed, Representative Peniston.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This amendment addresses two concerns that came up during committee, but we felt they were substantive enough that we wanted to not do a conceptual amendment in the committee. So what this does is it takes care of the concern that it would be a long, long time that districts might make this public or available to the public. And so this says that it will be up on the website not later than 10 business days following the meeting at which the minutes are approved by the board. And secondly, it was brought up in committee that there are districts, especially more rural districts, that do not have websites and clearly don't have the kind of funding it takes to have an IT team to make a website. So we just say that the minutes must be published in the same manner as the board regularly provides public notice. So that takes care of that second concern. I ask for your yes vote on L007.
Representative McNulty.
So Representative Peniston, I'm sorry, I was back dealing with a couple of questions on this bill. Can you help me understand, this is a question that came up in committee, and I think that we adopted an amendment or discussed an amendment like this in committee. And so this is the amendment that is the result of that discussion? Okay. Thank you, Madam Chair. There are nods in the well.
Representative Gardner.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Well, I have a question for Representative Peniston about this amendment because it seems to convey or place jurisdiction in the courts of record of this state to issue injunctions to enforce the statute. It has been my view that the courts of record of this state, and actually that may be a change to say courts of record, because I believe that the jurisdiction over Open Meetings Act, but maybe Representative Peniston can clarify, I think the jurisdiction for those matters lies in the district court, not the county court. And I think this power already exists, which sort of begs the question, do we by inference then deprive the district court of jurisdiction to issue an injunction on other Open Meetings Act issues because we haven't called it out previously? I mean, it's really troubling to me to try to confer jurisdiction to do something that the court already has jurisdiction to do in a statute in which there are a whole host of other violations that may occur. And if that is the case, by inference, are we saying that we, the legislature, don't believe they have such a jurisdiction and we need to tell them they have that jurisdiction and to create the jurisdiction? It's very puzzling to me, Representative Peniston.
Representative Peniston.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So I'll just state on public record, this is like David going up against Goliath in the legal world. But what I will tell you is the reason that we put this in was, again, just clarifying, just making sure people knew we weren't trying to change a whole bunch of things. This, we're talking about lines 9 through 11 is already in state statute. It changes nothing. It's just to make sure that people know the intent of this bill is to keep those things in place. So that's what I know, Representative Gardner.
Representative Gardner.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Well, my apologies, Representative Peniston, if you're down here in the well by yourself. A few minutes ago, you had 5 lawyers who were more than willing to waive the attorney-client privilege for their client. So maybe they could come down here and explain to me whether or not courts of record now conveys jurisdiction upon county courts as well as the district court, something that we may not intend, and whether, since I believe clearly that the district courts have the authority to issue injunctions for violation of this statute, whether we now are by inference creating a situation where someone might argue that for all of these other violations, the district court does not have authority to issue an injunction, but only for this particular violation. I mean, it's really very strange to me that we'd need to say that they have the power to do something that I think they already have the power to do, and why are we doing that?
Is there further discussion on L007? Seeing none, Representative Gardner.
I think silence speaks volumes, Madam Chairman. Thank you.
Seeing no further discussion, the question before us is the adoption of L007 as an amendment to House Bill 1110. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed, no. No. The ayes have it. L007 is adopted. We're now back to the bill. Representative Representative McNulty.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move Amendment L010 and ask for an aye vote.
Thank you. L010 has been moved and is properly before us. Representative McNulty. Representative Gardner.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Well, Representative McNulty has previously explained this amendment. Members, what is interesting about this amendment is that unlike the underlying bill, which purports to, in my mind, waive a very important privilege under common law, this amendment makes clear that transparency in a matter that has a special provision now is important, and that we need to do this. There's no special privilege over these kinds of negotiations. None at all. And citizens need to know and understand what positions their Board of Education is taking with respect to collective bargaining negotiations. In my own city, the largest school district has a habit, practice, and routine of conducting union negotiations with the union in executive session, outside the public eye. It has been controversial. The public thinks that it is not transparent at all. And I believe Representative McNulty has a good point here, and it is one which Representative Peniston ought to agree with. If transparency is good, and if transparency with respect to what your lawyer might be telling you ought to be, then negotiating positions and negotiations themselves for collective bargaining ought to be open to the taxpayers of the district. I ask for an aye vote.
Representative Peniston.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, Representative Gardner and Representative McNulty, and perhaps Representative Gardner I ought to, but I don't. And Representative McNulty, not friendly. I'm asking for a no vote.
Representative Priola.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Representative Peniston, I wholeheartedly disagree. This is a very friendly amendment to the taxpayers. Roughly 70 or 80% of the dollars any district deals with will directly apply to this amendment and the transparency that is embedded in this amendment. Let us be clear, members. Voting against this amendment is voting against transparency, not with a catalog and a tape that an injunction has to go get with a judge. This takes it out from behind the veil and lets the public see real transparency for 70 to 80% of a school board's budget. I ask for an aye vote on L010.
Members, I have been informed that there is a request for a fiscal note on this amendment, on the bill because of this amendment. So we need to lay it over. Finish this one and just, okay. Pardon me. So we'll finish the discussion of this amendment. Okay. Representative McNulty.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And Representative Peniston, I offered the amendment with a smile, so I think that that alone accounts for the friendliness with which this amendment was offered. I can give you a hug. I can give you a hug too. There. There would be nothing civil about that union. Although it would make for interesting dinner time discussions, wouldn't it, Representative Peniston? I'm always right, in case you were wondering. Colleagues, the question that you have in front of us is, are you going to put these collective bargaining agreements first, or are you going to put students and parents and teachers first? By removing the veil of secrecy surrounding collective bargaining agreements, we will put parents and students and teachers first. That's the question that we have in front of us. Will we allow these negotiations to continue to happen behind closed doors, in the deep, dark, smoke-filled rooms?
Vapor-filled rooms.
Vapor-filled rooms? Judging by some of these school districts, a different kind of smoke today. Or are we going to open up those negotiations to full public view, allow our constituents to see what is happening, to understand what is happening, and to know what is happening with these collective bargaining agreements, putting parents, students, and teachers first? Or will you allow these negotiations to continue to happen in secret, behind closed doors, and outside of the view and outside of public scrutiny? I ask for a yes vote on L010.
Seeing no further discussion, the question before us is the adoption of L010 as an amendment to House Bill 1110. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed, no. No. L010 is lost. Is there any further discussion?
Any other amendments you guys have?
Seeing none, I have been informed that there have been the adequate number of signatures added for a request for a new fiscal note due to the amendment that has been added to the bill. So House Bill 1110, Representative Babone.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move House Bill 1110 be laid over to the end of the calendar.
House Bill 1110 will be laid over as requested.
As amended.
Representative Babone.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move the committee rise and report.
Committee will rise and report. Oh, committee will rise and report.
The House will come back to order. Mr. Kohler, please read the report of the Committee of the Whole.
Mr. Speaker, Committee of the Whole begs leave reporters under consideration following attached bills being second reading thereof and makes following recognitions thereon. House Bills 1008 amended, 1018, 1021 amended, 1103 amended, 1112 amended, 1129, 1130 amended, 1232, 33, 34, 35 amended, 36, 37, 38 amended, 39, 40, 41, 42, 43, 44, 45, 46, 47 amended, 48, 49, 50, 51, and 52 passed on second reading and order engrossed, placed on the calendar for third and final passage. House Bill 1110 laid over amended.
Representative Labuda. You've heard the motion. There are amendments at the desk. Mr. Kohler, pick which Sonnenberg amendment you want to do first. Okay, I'll pick. Let's do the amendment to House Bill 1235.
Representative Sonnenberg moved to amend the report of the Committee of the Whole to reverse the action taken by the committee adopting the following Tyler Amendment L002 to House Bill 1235 to show that said amendment lost and that House Bill 1235 as amended passed.
Representative Sonnenberg.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Members, I move the Sonnenberg Amendment to the Committee of the Whole.
Please proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Members, what this amendment does is takes away the Tyler Amendment that was adopted. What the Tyler Amendment did is took money from water projects and education and decided to utilize it in this forum for an issue that was not asked for by the Secretary of State. It was said that the governor's office supported this. There is question now about that. Members, I would ask you to send the bill at hand forward without the amendment put on by Tyler and keep this process above board with the honest statements that were made. I would ask for a yes vote on the Sonnenberg Amendment to the Committee of the Whole report.
Representative Tyler.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I ask for a no vote. If you look at the Secretary of State memo from the Joint Budget Committee, they have overspent their budget by a few $1 million, and I don't think that's appropriate for the Secretary of State to be overspending their budget. And we have some work to do here that's really important for the people of Colorado, for the voters of the state of Colorado to move this forward. And I ask respectfully for a no vote on this Sonnenberg Amendment.
Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, the question before the House is the Sonnenberg Amendment to the report of the Committee of the Whole to House Bill 1235. Mr. Kohler, please open the machine and members proceed to vote. Representatives Giroux and Peniston. Close the machine. With 29 aye votes, 35 no votes, 1 excused, and 0 absent, the first Sonnenberg Amendment to the report of the Committee of the Whole is lost. Mr. Kohler, please read the second Sonnenberg Amendment to the report of the Committee of the Whole. Do you want to withdraw that? Representative Sonnenberg.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. That was only going to apply if the first one passed. It was the outside on the other bill that did the transfer,
Yes.
so I withdraw it. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative Sonnenberg. Seeing no further amendments, the question at the desk is the adoption of the report of the Committee of the Whole. Mr. Kohler, please open the machine and members proceed to vote. Representative Scott, close the machine. With 64 aye votes, 0 no votes, 1 excused, and 0 absent, the report of the Committee of the Whole is adopted. Members, Afternoon committees will start at 2 p.m. to give you time. Members, so 2 p.m. we will start committees. Any further announcements or introductions? Representative Singer.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. You would have missed it anyway today, but the Children's Caucus did not have its scheduled meeting today on child trafficking. March's topic will be coming up in March, and it'll be over emancipation of children in foster care. Thank you.
Representative Tyler. And Rankin.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The folks from Bicycle Colorado are going to be on tomorrow. They'll be here at the Capitol tomorrow morning for the annual Bicycle Day Summit. They're hosting a breakfast for Lobby Day.
And remember, we passed a wonderful bill today to make Independence Pass safer, so right on with Bicycle Colorado. Be there, support them.
Yep, and they're expecting cyclists from almost every district in the state of Colorado first. See you tomorrow.
Representative Ryden.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, members of the State Veterans and Military Affairs Committee. Just a reminder that we are meeting in the old Supreme Court chambers today. See you in half an hour.
Representative Rivera.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. For members of the Public Health Care and Human Services Committee, we have added one more bill for tomorrow afternoon's calendar. It's Senate Bill 67.
Representative Lebsack.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I was going to announce that this morning, but fourth graders from the Northmore Elementary School were attending today. I'm not sure if they were able to make it.
It might be up there.
Oh, they are up there, right there, ladies and gentlemen.
Any further? Representative Lebsack.
Mr. Speaker, thank you. And Northmore is literally across the street from my house in North Glen, although I live in Thornton, and so we're very appreciative that the kids from Northmore came and visited with us today.
Representative Fisher.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Members of the House Agriculture, Livestock, and Natural Resources Committee, we have two bills starting at 2 p.m., so please be in your seats promptly at 2. Thanks.
Representative Duran.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And Joint Budget Committee is not meeting today.
Any further announcements or introductions? Representative Pabon.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move the House stand in adjournment until...
Can we actually just have to read across the desk? So I'm just going to put us in a brief recess. The House will stand in a brief recess. Members, you are free to go to committee. We'll see you tomorrow back here at 9 a.m. The House is in recess.